It's so funny because my sister was in New York at the time, and my wife and I, we were in Oklahoma, and then my mom was in Kansas City, and we went back to visit my mom at the same time as my sister. And my sister, when we got to Kansas City, was like, "Oh my God, it's so open here. This is so incredible!" Like bawling her eyes out on how open Kansas City was. But my wife and I, when we got to Kansas City, relative to Oklahoma, thank you, Paul. Relative to Oklahoma, was so much more tyrannical. So it's just like crazy how different it was depending on where you were. Because Oklahoma is basically like people were cautious for the first 2 weeks or whatever. And then after that, people weren't concerned at all. And like you could go to pretty much any place. And yes, they would have like wear a mask upon entry, but you would just say, no, thank you. And they'd be like, okay, whatever. Like they didn't really care.
We had to wear a mask, oh, can we have a table for 4? And then you get to the table and you just take it off. I'm just like, this is so stupid.
It's a very brilliant virus that knows when to not mess with people.
I know. And the plexiglass. I was working as a speech therapist and they wanted me to wear a mask. And I'm like, you understand that I have to cue children with my mouth. Like and then they had these like clear things that kind of like rested on your chin and it went up straight like this. And
like a sneeze guard?
Yeah. And I'm like, that the air is just, it's coming right. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I refuse to do it. And and then we started doing speech therapy from home. And then that's when I got to build up my business and I was able to retire from speech 6 months later.
I'll probably interview you individually at some point, but like if you could touch on just from a perspective of a speech language therapist, like what that does to kids, masking them up. Because I've always wanted to ask someone in your sort of domain, like what are the implications for kids who are like learning language, not only just by the mouth, but facial expressions and things like this?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I haven't been a speech therapist for the last 5 years. So once COVID hit, I was kind of like out of it. We were doing Zoom. But just, I mean, we learn so much from our facial expressions, so much nonverbal communication. And there's so much mirroring that happens with the, mirror neurons and looking at where articulation happens, and there's just so much cueing in and joint attention that we're blocking so much of that. So I can't even begin to calculate the sort of effects that has on language development. And what we saw happen is that they quietly changed the developmental milestones to be much more lax. And I have a feeling it's because so many kids are now requiring services because they were not getting good inputs. And also children, in elementary schools not being able to interact with each other and not being, like at the desks and all these things. So they move the milestones for all PT/OT speech. And I think it's also because there's just probably an overabundance of kids needing services and that they can't pay for all of those. So they'll make the milestones more lax to not have to pay for it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's my thought.
Yeah, because it's like not only just the language that you see, like I look at your eyes when, we talk. Yeah. I try to look at people in the eyes.
Yeah.
Not you.
But you're still seeing the mouth.
It's so funny if someone's just like first tuning into this episode, they just hear Mike Cardamone pop up and speak out of nowhere. They're like, wait, what? What the hell? No, so I guess I should set the context before we continue on with this. So I wanted to just gather some friends post-Confluence, really to just riff on anything. I'm sure we'll touch on Confluence quite a bit. For those who were not in attendance at Confluence, all 4 of us were. And it's kind of cool because we have the perspective of one of the co-producers, we have the perspective of 2 of the speakers, and one of the attendees. But you have a lot to offer. So don't think that there's any hierarchy or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But it's cool because we get all the perspectives here. And it's great that we have Mark here, Mark Gober, who is an absolutely brilliant human being.
47-time author.
I heard that.
Shout out
I thought it was going to be my only book. It's like 7 books later.
We're gonna close this podcast. He's gonna say I just finished one while he wrote one while we're on the podcast.
That's kind of how he drops it on the other.
I just finished the end of Upside Down microphone acoustics during the cast.
But this is actually great. This is what I wanted to say is that I have like Mark, who is an awesome dude, very brilliant, intelligent. Not that he's not funny. Mark can also be funny, but we have a good balance with Mike to interject. Also a very knowledgeable guy. And then we have Danielle Hamilton here. All of her links to follow her will be in the show notes, and she has a lot to offer with respect to circadian health. You're outside basically like 24/7.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't spend your time in studios like this, which serve a purpose, but have a lot of...
You sleep outside?
I don't, but because my neighbors don't know about blue lights. So, but that would...
So like the blue light from them is bothersome.
It is, yeah.
You're like super sensitive to it?
I mean, I would not... I sleep in a pitch black room.
Yeah.
And there's street lights. And I mean, I live in just a neighborhood here in Austin. And so I can't... you just can't sleep outside with all that ambient light. It would be worse for you, I think, I would argue.
How did you sleep at Confluence?
I slept really well at Confluence.
If you didn't, you could say I did not sleep.
No, there was a full moon. And so there was a lot of light actually in the tent from the full moon. But I slept with a sleep mask and earplugs like I do every night. And so yeah, I slept really well at Confluence. I mean, camping there's a couple lights, but not like, my neighbor's LED lights pouring into my yard, or like my other neighbor's Christmas lights are white and blue, bright LEDs. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kind of like laughable. But I have 100% blackout shades in my room, so I sleep great.
What do you do for sleep, actually?
What do you mean?
What is your sleeping environment like?
So,
as someone interested in circadian rhythm health.
So you want it to be cool, and you want to make sure you're turning off your Wi-Fi at night and eliminating as much of the electrical field as you can. I am going to get to the point where I'm going to turn off the breaker to my room. I just haven't figured that out yet, but that is on my list to do this weekend, actually, because that being exposed to that alternating current at all times it definitely interferes with our sleep. But turning off the Wi-Fi router is a great thing that you can do. Or any wearables, you want to be aware of that. So if you have an Oura Ring, airplane mode, but some people will say don't even do that. So it just depends on your sensitivity and your preferences. And then you want to really make sure that as soon as the sun goes down, you're blocking blue light. So you don't want any blue light on your skin and on your eyes. And so you turn your phone screen red. Ideally, you're not using your screens that much. And then you'll want to definitely sleep in like a pitch black room where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. All of those things are going to help your mitochondria know that it's nighttime. We need darkness to trigger a bunch of different hormonal cascades in the body.
Got it.
So,
how does that compare to a dark room? Like for a dark room retreat where there's no light at all? Or is that what
all day?
All day and all night. Like Dr. Edith, our mutual friend, did that where it's like, how many days?
I think she did 9.
Yeah, pure darkness. And they're making sure there's not a single ray of light. So I don't know how your setup compares to that.
So, I mean, there might be
you live in a cave, right?
A speck of light coming in through underneath, the door.
Okay, well, that's not valid.
Yeah, it's not. It's not that crazy.
You sleep in a bed?
I do.
You sleep on the floor.
I sleep on the floor.
Dude, that's
I want a floor bed. I've been seeing this. I've been retargeted on Instagram.
What's your sleep setup? This is a good question, actually.
I turn my Wi-Fi off, but yeah, I don't sleep in a bed. I sleep on the floor on one of those like Japanese mat deals.
That's what I want to get.
Yeah.
How's your back?
My back's better doing that. It's way better, exponentially better.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There's something about that. I think we're supposed to be sleeping on the floor.
For sure. And they talk about it with co-sleeping with babies. That my friend Molly talks about this. She's a sleep expert. So when you co-sleep with a baby, you have sort of like no more fear of, rolling over onto the baby because you're sleeping closer to the ground where you would feel something under you. So it's apparently safer in that.
That makes
aspect.
a lot of sense, especially me as like a wild sleeper. The thing that I can't get around, and I think Kylie would say the same thing. I don't want to speak for her. I know for sure she'd say the same thing. Is the aesthetics of a room with a floor or a bed that's just on the floor.
It's all
which is so stupid, which is really stupid if you think about it, but just like...
You got to get maybe some Japanese decor to pull it together, Maybe
I know, but we have like a Spanish revival style bedroom.
I saw your bedroom. I liked it. I like what you're going
Yeah, both of you helped me move in. Where were you, man? I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry.
What's your
What's
your sleeping arrangement like?
Nothing like that. So I have a general question.
Okay.
Which is, where do we draw the line between taking care of ourselves and becoming hypochondriacs, basically?
That's a great
question. So there's like the germ theory hypochondriacs, which this audience doesn't think about quite as much because for those who haven't heard this podcast before, there are questions about whether or not germs cause disease or if germs are actually helpful, like bacteria, fungi, parasites that actually help the body eliminate certain things. And then there are separately questions about whether or not viruses even exist, meaning that they are just theorized to exist because of a bunch of inferences and people get sick for other reasons. So anyway, there's a category of people in the world, my former self included, that might have been very scared of germs. But then those who don't worry about germs as much talk a lot about toxins and diet and light and EMFs. And that can become its own form of psychosis of like, well, I had this one thing that had a little bit of canola oil rather than beef tallow. Am I going to live?
No is the answer if anyone's listening.
Yes. So there's that category of like physical things. Then there's also the category of hypochondriacs with regard to emotions. It's like, well, I just had this conflict and now am I going to be so sick, like in the field of German new medicine or other related areas where we're thinking about the psychic roots of our ailments. So just something to discuss. Because so to your question, Alec, about sleep, I've gotten to a point now where I'm like, I think I can just handle anything. So I'm going to try to do well, like try not to eat toxic food and not be immersing myself in EMFs and not have too much light in my room when I sleep. But I feel like as a human being, we can withstand all that stuff if we're in a good place psychospiritually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I love that you brought this up because this is something that I talk about with my clients and on my podcast all the time, that we have to, at the end of the day, control the controllables. And if someone is, I think, a little bit more sick where their mitochondria are struggling, and we have to think about our mitochondria not as these energy factories, but these sensors, and they're constantly scanning the environment, our internal environment, external environment for threats. And I do think that there's what can override all of that is the mindset, is the belief that I am safe, I am resilient. And I think that mindset is missing from the people who stay really sick. And I see this in myself. And to tie it back into Confluence, this is something that sort of happened to me there that felt very profound, was that we went there and we ate all the amazing food from the restaurant, and there was dairy, there was eggs, and historically I've been sensitive to those foods, and I didn't bring extra food. So I was like, all right, I'm going to eat this food and I'm going to enjoy it because I love these things. And so I was eating yogurt and I had eggs and I felt absolutely fine. And just based on all the things that I was learning the whole weekend, I was like, I just don't want to identify with having food sensitivities anymore. And I just decided not to. And I've been eating those foods at home with no problem. And so I think that that's just sort of highlighting that at the end of the day, it really comes down to what we believe. And so, yes, I think that some of these things are important. Like I haven't turned off the, breaker in my room. And also I'm fine, but there are also people who are super sick. And so
also okay to be curious about that too.
Yeah.
Like, how can I sleep way better if I turn off the breaker? Like maybe I get more insights at night. Maybe I'm lucid dreaming because there's no breaker involved. Or I'm turning off all the electricity in my house. You know what I mean? Like the way that I look at this is always through the lens of like the water, biofield, and ether. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're in a dance between our bodies expressing the imprint of our individuated biofield and also all the various fields, frequencies, signals around us, whether that be from a biological sense or from a mechanical sense or otherwise, right? And because of that, I think that if we are primarily in tune with our own field, our own core essence, who we truly are, which we all kind of like talked about feeling at Confluence. Maybe I was the primary one to talk about that, but it was a sentiment that came up quite a bit in some of the other talks. It's cool. Like this helps us remember who we truly are, gathering like this. And when we're in touch with that, we're less impacted by the other fields and frequencies around us, because what's imprinting on the core of our being, on the waters of our body, is our own biofield more than the other frequencies and fields around us.
Your favorite quote, the strong coherent field.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Strong coherent field overtakes and trains weaker incoherent fields. And in addition to that, when we're primarily focused on our own belief systems as well, and like getting in touch with those, I think that deepens our ability to connect with the core essence of who we are. But also, the more we get in touch with nature, which is where I think we find God, so to speak. It's not that we don't find God in like these objects. Like I think we are experiencing God all around us, inside of us, above us, I think God is within the ether and the ether is within all things. Kind of something like that. I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but that's kind of how I look at it. But when it comes to these other things like negative thoughts that impact our emotions, when it comes to like physical chemicals impacting us, I think the more that we are in touch with nature, the much easier it is to get in touch with our own individuated biofield. So it's like one and the same. Like a lot of people talk about like a lot of German New Medicine absolutists, for example, would say that aside from acute poisoning, toxicity is not relevant in disease. I'm talking about like hardcore German New Medicine fanatics would say that. Would you agree like that they would say that?
I mean, my understanding is that aside from, and I'm not an expert on this, aside from physical injury, malnutrition, and poisoning, that we get sick because of conflicts. And conflicts have a specific definition, which is you have to have felt isolated in experiencing it. It was unexpected and it was something distressing.
Right. And so this is the example that I bring up. I actually don't know the answer to this, but with respect to that, with respect to the idea that emotions are like the primary factor as it results to like biological conflicts, which they wouldn't call it disease. They would call it like a healing crisis or a healing conflict, right? But when you look at like the Hadza people in Africa or the Kogi people in Colombia or the Quero people of Peru, do you think they have any concept of like chronic depression or chronic anxiety? And I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine the answer is no. And I think it's because like what's missing from the conversation as it pertains to emotional health, or at least in the circles that I'm in, is that I think it becomes much easier to deal with your emotional health and resolve conflicts, you could say, the more that you are connected with nature and eating organic foods and things like this. Now, that being said, I think it gets to a point, and I'm not saying that any of us here are superior to other people, but just like your example, right? Like you've gotten to such a point in your journey of dissolving your own conditioned beliefs, of dissecting all these various paradigms that we've all been inculcated into, to where you can just be like, actually, I don't identify as that anymore. And I'm not saying that's going to work for everyone else, but you've gotten to a point where you've gone down that hero's journey with respect to nutrition to the degree that you can now just shift your belief like that because you're carrying such a strong internal coherence.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I think it's like both. And for me, on that same note, lately I've struggled more with like the emotions and like being a hypochondriac about that as it pertains to physical disease, man. Like I've let go of all the like the germ-based stuff, and even to a large degree like nutrition stuff. And don't get me wrong, it still matters based on everything I just said. It matters tremendously. It matters like our light environment, but it's more that like I don't know if it's because I'm really trying to embody the self-ownership that like only I am the author of my own story, for better or for worse. And because of that, that means like my emotions are what's causing my illness. But is it like actually the emotions, or is it the belief around the emotions and the belief that emotions cause illness? Like how deep does that go? You know what I mean?
Well, especially if consciousness plays some kind of fundamental role in reality, then inherently the way we think in our consciousness is going to affect the physical world. But also my understanding of German New Medicine is that an event is not inherently causing conflict. It's the way we perceive an event. So we could all perceive the same event in different ways.
So it is our belief about it then.
So it's our belief, but maybe the way our system responds to something. So something I've thought about is, let's say a longtime meditator might not have a stress response to a certain stimulus because the person has done that work psycho-spiritually to not perceive the event in a way that's as conflicting. So I think it's in line with what you're saying. If we get to ourselves to a certain level, however you define that, then we're just going to be able to handle life better and flow better, regardless of what's going on, like drinking out of these plastic bottles, which I'm sure is appalling to some people. But
true.
It's like,
or drinking
I think we can handle it.
So I feel like an emotion, just having an emotion is not going to, my personal thought on this is that that's not what's going to make us sick. Because if we are holding ourselves back from expressing an emotion for fear that it's going to make us sick, what are we doing? We're repressing.
Yeah.
So, and also what's the sort of antidote to chronically repressed emotions is to feel.
Yeah.
So I personally believe if we think about a hormetic curve, that our body is set up to deal with acute stressors. We're so good at acute stressors, and what do? They make us stronger. So I feel that having an acute emotion, you have this intense emotion you feel, which is really important to get it out, and then we recover. And I think it's the lack of recovery, and that either, ooh, I can't feel this, so we're trying to push it down, or I shouldn't feel this, so we're judging, or like not coming to that, allowing the nervous system to have that peak into, a fight or flight and then to come back down out of it. So that's my sort of thought on that. And I also think that I've just started to bring everything back to the mitochondria. And it's like we know that we need to, like, the mitochondria are just sensing these things. And so they know if we're not fully feeling the emotion. Like, you can't hide anything from your mitochondria, kind of, because it's just in there. And so I think it's all part of the process. When you're saying that you want to be in charge of your emotions, are you implying that you don't want to allow anyone to make you feel an emotion that you don't want to feel?
No, I would say like just fostering better emotional resilience, if that makes sense, and like being able to move through emotions quicker. But then also, in addition to that, like really examining my thought patterns and whether my recurring thought patterns are leading to feelings that are perpetual feelings in my body that then lead to what you're talking about. You describe it through mitochondria. I always describe this stuff through water, and I'm not saying it's better for worse. That's just how I describe it, is that you have like water retention in your body. Like, I think it was
stagnation.
Yeah, stagnation. Exactly. Like a perfect example of like a river that has been dammed up, and you see everything back from that dam. If there's not enough going through, that it starts to have a bunch of gunk build up, right? Yeah. Rather than letting the waters flow, the waters continue to move. And I think that's the lens that I look at it through. So it's not like I don't want to feel emotions. It's that I want to get to a point of emotional resilience and emotional maturity that something can stress me out and then I'm not hanging on to it. And it's more primarily like analyzing my belief systems and thought patterns than it is the emotions. So maybe like what I said was a misnomer, because like I think we have to feel our emotions when they arise. Otherwise, you can't get back to the core essence of who you are, because there's always a superficial layer, like a stickiness on top of it, prohibiting you from accessing your core essence when you're sitting with unprocessed emotions. Now, what lies beneath those processed emotions, I think, is, I don't want to say more important to look at, but are those belief systems and thought patterns too. At least I'll speak for myself. That's kind of what I'm referring back to, is like, what are my recurring thought patterns, many of which were, you could say, installed in me when I was younger, that are circling in my mind, that are leading me to feel perpetual emotion as it relates to something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of those limiting beliefs and our core wounding that end up, it's just triggering it over and over. And it's pointing to something that's maybe unhealed in us and that we can dive deeper into. But
yeah.
Can I tell a story?
Tell a story.
On that note.
Mark Gober's story time. Hell yeah. Love it.
One of my favorite spiritual teachers, Dr. David Hawkins, he wrote a book called Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, which is a super famous book. Highly recommend it to everybody. But he talked about feelings and emotions. He was traditionally a psychiatrist, like a top psychiatrist in New York, and then became a spiritual teacher after his awakenings. But he said, basically, if you're feeling something, that means you're not feeling enough of it. If you're feeling something, there is still some resistance to that thing that you have not let out fully. So he tells some very extreme examples where he got to a point where he could undergo surgery without anesthetics because he was constantly feeling the pain, and therefore he didn't feel the pain. So if we feel pain, that means there's some resistance within us. He also had a story of accidentally chopping off one of his thumbs.
And he grew it back like a lizard?
He didn't get that far. So
I'm not interested in this book anymore. Let's wrap it up.
Continue, please.
But apparently, I forget where I heard him say this, like he was able to just stop the bleeding immediately, not growing it back. So there are lectures of him without a thumb on one of his hands.
But he was able to stop the bleeding by focus. Did he describe how?
He would just go into the feeling fully, not resist it. So the pain, he would basically ask for more of it. So if you're feeling something, ask for more of that thing. He would say, if you're angry, that means you're not expressing enough of your anger. If you're anxious, you're not expressing some element of it.
I like that. It's like those Chinese finger traps. You ever do those?
Yeah.
You can't.
No, it is. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, you got to give in.
Yeah.
Well, funny that you bring all this up, because I actually just started homeopathy like 2 nights ago. And I was really inspired to do that from seeing the talk at Confluence and talking all about homeopathy and talking to your wife about it. And it's funny that we have the same remedy. We're basically the same people. And and I took that and I had a huge emotional release the other night. And I was crying and I still felt like there was more in there. I'm like, all right, I got to keep going, because it felt like it needed to still keep coming out. And then it just naturally resolves. And I think there's so many times I've also been doing this practice called journal speak. It's from someone named Nicole Sachs. She has an amazing book called Mind Your Body. And it's her idea of how to get out of chronic pain and chronic symptoms and all of this stuff, she says, is healed by your mind. She has all these stories of people healing all sorts of conditions like chronic Lyme, if that exists. And I know what you're going to say about that. I listen to enough of your podcast that I know.
I just appreciate saying if that exists.
Yeah.
Just that is enough. Like that's
people get sick, but maybe not for the reasons we think.
Right.
To be clear.
Like, their manifestation of, long COVID or chronic back pain or migraines or all these things, autoimmunity. And they're doing it by doing this method called journal speak. And so I've been doing a lot of journal speak too. And it's brought me back to what you first said. It's like, how do we know that it's not just our anxiety about all these things? Because there's so much fear mongering online. I see someone on there like, oh, don't use a sponge because there's germs. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, and I know what you would say about that, but it's just like, there's so much fear out there and there's lead in this and there's, so that's where I'm so excited to have found this methodology, but you journal out everything. It's supposed to be raw and, stuff that you wouldn't want to admit to people. And it's really healing to really go into it. And so what I found for myself is that I kind of take the thing that's all the way in the back, the last thing in the world that I want to think about, and I pull it to the front of the line and dive right in. And I have been so much less anxious and I've had so much relief from that. And so I think it's sometimes if we can sit with ourselves long enough to say, what is it that I'm avoiding? And where you don't want to think about anymore, that's, I feel like, what we need to go into in order to really let the thing go. Or if not, we're just holding on to it.
100%. I think it's funny you say that. I feel like it's happening to a lot of people lately. I just had a phone call with my good buddy, Nathaniel Solis, just talking about all this because I had these negative recurring thought patterns. And I said to him, he's like, dude, call me, let's talk through them. And they were just like stupid stuff, like just dumb stuff from like when I was younger, stuff that I did that I was like not happy to admit that I did, you know what I mean? And they were just popping back up. And just by speaking it to him and having someone reflect back to me like, dude, we all have those stories. Like, who gives a shit? It was so healing for me, just for me to speak it out, to get it out of me. And it was wild that it was popping back up. So maybe it was one of those things that like I needed to revisit it again just to get it out of me,
Yeah. I mean, it's that healing in spirals and the expansion and contraction. I heard that at Confluence. Eileen. Oh my God, I love that. That changed my life. That when we heal, there's this expansion and contraction, or we're healing in spirals and coming back to the same thing with new eyes. And that's part of it. So yeah, I don't think you should be ashamed of yourself for feeling these feelings.
No,
okay.
I feel good about them.
Good.
It's more that like, again, going back to the thoughts, not to make this like now like all three of you are analyzing me. Oh, tell me more, Alec. But it's more about those recurring thought patterns, because after Confluence experiencing this big expansion, this is another rabbit hole or a question we could ask. Like, is it because I was thinking about how, after expansions, you always know there's a huge contraction. Like, did I help bring that into existence, or is that a fundamental aspect of this reality? That's another question we can set aside. But nonetheless, my belief system at this current time would say like, there's always ebbs and flows, spirals, expansion, contraction, and Confluence felt like a big expansion. And in the middle of moving, in the middle of doing all these things at once, big contraction afterwards. But I had these like negative recurring thought patterns. That's what I'm talking about. And granted, in a transition, just had our third baby, Confluence, like all those things happening at once, which we all chose and said yes to. My wife and I and our kids, maybe not as much our kids, but my wife and I said yes and said, kids, come along, you have to. But it's those things that I'm talking about, like dealing with those recurring negative.
But are you looking at it as a gift? Like,
what
a beautiful opportunity. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In hindsight, 100%.
Okay. Yeah. Hindsight is definitely easier.
Well, during it, it's like I'd never in my life experienced that level. And like, I've been through a lot of shit, right? Relative to most people. And I'd never in my life though experienced like recurring negative thoughts to that degree. Like everything from my childhood was everything was coming up. It was wild.
Maybe because you were in an open and healed enough space to be able to have that come up.
Yeah.
maybe because you were able to handle it. Like when I went to Costa Rica last year, I got the flu and I had or whatever. I can't say anything normal in here. Okay.
You don't have to make qualifying statements every single time.
I had symptoms of the flu and I had a really big fever. And of course, at first I was like total victim, but I was like, why did this happen right now? And it's because my body was able to get so much energy from so much sun and so much grounding and magnetism that it was able to mount a fever. And so I was just kind of seeing sort of a similarity in that, maybe because you were so expanded, you felt so safe with community and so connected, as I know is super important to you and everybody. And so maybe you were able to be like, okay, let's process this piece. So then, because I'm safe to do it.
Yeah. Well, if you think about like going back to the biofield, we haven't heard enough from you, by the way. You've been over there just plotting.
I was holding back asking if you've considered cutting your thumb off. You might be more worried about that. It might take your mind off some of the other stuff going on.
I've like had those experiences where my back hurts or something like that, or I'm like really sore after a long workout, and I like just press my nail into my thumb to distract myself from the back pain. If I've like had enough of it, so I get what you're getting at there. But now, damn it, I don't even remember what I was going to say. Let's move on to another.
Can I tell another story?
Yeah, please tell another story.
Yeah.
Okay, it's related, I promise.
Good, dude. Doesn't have to be related.
So a week ago, I went to this Russian martial arts thing in Austin.
I'm glad that I thought that was going to be a bathhouse, but keep going.
No, and it's actually related to Confluence. I learned about it through Alone and Maya and Lior. Shout out to them from Confluence. And
Alone, the guy with the rock?
Yes. With the rock that came from a UFO site that melts ice at a different rate than other things.
Dude, that thing is wild. I'm going to try to throw up some B-roll of that if I have some for what you're describing right now for those that are watching, because it is wild.
So in any event, they convinced me to come to this thing called Sistema, which is Russian martial arts. And I hope I'm doing this properly, giving it justice, because I've only been there one time. But the whole philosophy is around basically flowing with things, and you become more powerful in that, like physically flowing. So one of the exercises we did is like we were trying to be, two people would hold up one person, and the one person would basically just like loosen their body, and it would become so heavy that the people couldn't hold them up anymore. And the instructor was explaining to me that basically like he would do these punches from like an inch away, and it would be so powerful. You'd feel like reverberations in the organs. It was very painful. But he said it's like when you feel those areas of resistance, you can actually thank the punch or life in general, because it's showing you where you still have tension. There would be a way to absorb that punch where you didn't actually have the tension, but because I did and so did everyone else, it's showing us where we're still holding on to things. So it's like this act of flowing physically, which is what I think we're talking about on a metaphysical level too, and flowing with our emotions is actually allowing life to take us in different directions. And so I think there's I was asking the instructor afterwards, I'm like, so I know we're doing this with martial arts, but really it applies to life. And he said, yeah, that's the point with this. It becomes a way of living. And I realized for a few days after doing that class, I was just like looser in my body, like trying anything that came my way. I was just trying to flow with it.
Yeah.
Because basically you become like, no one can mess with you if you flow with it. Wow. And Alone was explaining to me that like people would try to like push him down and they can't do it anymore because he's able to just go with each of the pushes after a few sessions.
I wonder how that applies physically and like metaphysically, or I don't want to say metaphysically, maybe metaphorically is a proper term. Because like, you know how Alone talked about how people couldn't physically push him down. I wonder if that reoriented his psyche and his foundational belief systems to be like, okay, when it comes to like interpersonal dynamics, people can't push me down anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. You seem to be talking about emotional health a lot, dude. Was there something you're working on related to emotions specifically? No, I didn't mean it like that. I meant a book. Damn, that sounded kind of messed up. I meant like an into upside down emotions.
No, I mean, it's in all the books in different ways, especially upside down living.
I don't know, dude. You seem really interested in that stuff right now, Mark.
Yeah, it's super important. You know why? Because
trying to dig it out of him.
I'm like, I think he's working on a manuscript right now, and he won't.
No, I'm not writing a book because actually at Music and Sky last year,
no way.
Alec was pressing me like, "Are you working on anything?" And I was working on the Cosmos book, but I wasn't sure if my publisher was going to accept it, so I didn't say anything. So I actually don't have anything right now.
Okay, you really don't.
But this is an important topic if you guys want to take it. That I'm finding myself way less interested in the news or the latest political thing relative to like what's going on in my life and my own nervous system and the same thing for those around me, like our own internal state. And I felt that at Confluence this year. It was way less rage against the system, more of how are we going to build the new world and become better versions of ourselves. So I think you're picking up on that too in me.
No, that's great, man.
Because I think when we get better internally, then we're more able to help the world. That's the paradox. So like there's a lot of unhealed stuff in the truther world, which we see, where people get really angry rather than expressing in a more, I don't know, holistic way. So
think about
discuss.
that in
That
terms of like detox, like even in terms of the way, we discuss it in language where it's like colon and colonizing, right? When people are filled up in their guts and contaminated, the external world reflects that. And so we have wars, we have fighting, we have domination, we have all of that stuff. And so to your point, I think the more we take it upon ourselves to clean up our mental state, our physical state, the world has to reflect that. And then if we do it collectively, just happens quicker,
Dude, I love Veda Austin's free range egg experiment to like discuss or to give an example of this. And it's because I can see where a lot of people might think, oh, this sounds a little bit too woo-woo to me. Like, well, how are you going to impact the world at that level? If at the very least, if you think it's too woo-woo, the idea that becoming more coherent yourself bleeds coherence into other people or pushes coherence into other people or helps bring them and train them into more coherence, you can at least recognize that your foundational belief systems dictate in many ways your actions and words and ways you go about your life on a daily basis. I think most people can recognize that. But I love Veda Austin's free range egg experiment. I don't necessarily need to get into the details on that, but it's like a perfect illustration is like the more you reconnect with who you truly are, the more you do the work, like you said, to clean up yourself, the more coherent you are, and the more you're overtaking and training the weaker, incoherent fields around you. To your point on like discussing the political things that are going on, it's so interesting. I would agree. I completely agree. And at the same time, like I guess, and this all goes back to belief system, and that's what's so crazy. My belief is that the way this reality conducts itself is we are in an intricate dance between our own individuated fields, which are an amalgamation of our beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and then you could add in the physical world spoken words and actions, right? But we're in an intricate dance with others who are co-creating in their own little pockets and worlds as well. And when I say others, I'm not just talking about other people, I'm talking about the natural world, animals, things like this, non-native EMFs, which are sending frequencies, fields, and signals, God himself, what's, thought forms in the ether. We're in this intricate dance, co-creating everything, right? And so like the nuance that I add to that is I like to be generally aware of what others are co-creating if they're in my immediate vicinity physically. But I also know that the antidote, if you want to call it that, to that is to become more coherent myself.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like not giving my awareness to something, but being generally aware of what other people are feeding into and other people are co-creating. And I feel like the way I use my social media is to comment on those things to help people come back into internal coherence. Like, hey, stop engaging with this nonsense and come back to who you truly are. That's kind of like what I've found my niche and role to be, I guess you could say. But that's kind of how I look at it.
I'm with you. I think there's a balance of needing to be aware of what's happening in the world, not just saying, oh, I'm going to put my head in the sand.
Of course.
Which is really dangerous too. But I'm just saying that I don't feel as interested in it.
No,
like,
same.
I want to know what's happening generally, and I think it's important for all of us to know. But I'm just like, I kind of don't care about that as much anymore. I'll follow what's going on Twitter and in the news, but like...
But is that a belief system too for us to say like, oh, we still need to be aware of what's going on? Do we? Like... Because I dance with that too. Yeah. Like, is that it would be inherently an unproven belief.
Unproven belief. I mean, the way I like to, analogy I often give is like, imagine there's an angry tiger running at you. You could just choose to ignore it and then get eaten by the tiger. Or you could say, okay, the tiger's there. Let me figure out what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to freak out about it. So I think we should try to know about the tiger. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's good.
Mike, what do you think? Disagree?
Yeah. No, I agree. We should know about the tigers. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a matter of how close in proximity is it getting to, you know what I mean? And that applies to all the stuff we're talking about in terms of politics, so I think we do have some kind of obligation to see as stewards of the earth here, if we have dominion, and things are getting kind of wild, if it's encroaching too much. And the other part of that too is the belief that none of these politicians or actors have more power than we do. only thing that makes them more quote unquote powerful is the collective belief that they have power. So once we start dismantling that, this dude on the news has no more power than I do. So I'm going to check him now. Now we got paperwork flying. We got all sorts of stuff flying. So now it's like, if we really step into our dominion like that, that negates a lot of this, where it's like, if we see someone encroach, right? And this is important to talk about in terms of community and stuff too with Confluence. Like, if we're going to hold that resonance, things that aren't in harmony with that, they're going to get checked. So that's going to be happening all over across the board, right? So I guess part of it is recognizing that the tiger doesn't necessarily have more power than you, and that might be a facade. Yeah. It might be paper mache or whatever,
It really is wild if you think about it at that level, and it's hard to get people who've never considered this to like really understand it, talking about the illusion of authority, that quite literally the authority structure is predicated on our collective and really individual, a group of individuals' belief in it. That's it. Like, that is crazy to think about.
Right. And also crazy, faulty logic. Can I just go through this quickly? Because it just blows my mind the more I think about it. The reason most people believe that we need government is a political monopoly, by the way, which I know freaks some people out when they think about it, but it really is. It's a political monopoly over a certain territory. But the reason most people believe we need government is because of a lack of trust in human beings. So they say we don't trust human beings, and our solution is going to be to take a subset of people we don't trust and put them inside of a political monopoly. And then they say it's okay because the people that we don't trust are going to vote people we don't trust into the political monopoly and then run free and fair elections even though we don't trust them. So it's this self-destroying logic. If you don't trust people, then you would not trust government. It shouldn't exist. And if you do trust people, then you wouldn't need this political monopoly at all. So, I mean, the idea of government is destroyed on the basis of logic alone.
100%. Most paradigms are too, though.
Yeah. Longer story, but true.
Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rush diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the New Biology Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The New Biology Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the New Biology Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, FORWARD, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and New Biology Clinic helps you remember. What if nature's intelligence could directly influence your physiology, helping to regulate your nervous system, sharpen your intuition, and shift your emotional state in a measurable way? For over 25 years, Lotus Way has been pioneering the use of flower essences, liquid infusions that capture the bioenergetic imprint of plants. Unlike essential oils, these remedies work on a vibrational level, interacting with your body's meridians and electrical system to promote clarity, resilience, and balance. Katie Hess, who I featured on episode 74 of the Way Forward podcast, has spent decades studying the effects of over 300 rare and powerful flowers, hand collecting them from across the world. The result? A line of elixirs, mists, and anointing oils, and even some chocolate, designed to shift your state of mind and body, not through placebo, but through the subtle yet profound ways plant frequencies interact with human biology. I think flower essences are severely overlooked in the wellness space because it really is an incredible way to package up the wisdom and the innate intelligence of nature and deliver it to your body. And it brings your body back into coherence because it's tuning you on an energetic level like an instrument. So if you want to find which flower essences are right for you, you can take the flower quiz so you can see which ones match your current energetic state. As a listener of The Way Forward, you get an exclusive discount. Just use code ALEC10 for 10% off your first order. Or if you're the Way Forward member, get 20% off plus ongoing savings, and just reach out to us if you're a member and we'll get you your membership discount. Just go to lotusway.com/Alec or just head to the show notes so you can experience one of nature's most powerful energetic remedies today.
I feel like I am just really thankful for posts like yours, Alec, that you did the other day, talking about your thought pattern and your belief system around how we can relate to things that are going on in the world. Because some of us, those ideas have never occurred to us that that's an option. And so for me, I read your post, I shared your post. I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, but also really helps to calm my anxiety about what's happening, because you can get so swayed by the fear. And it's like, oh, I don't, all these things are happening. And, I guess I do have the privilege to just kind of tune it out and choose to focus on, instead of let that anxiety drive me, it's like, what can I do? What can I do? I can focus on love and gratitude and spread joy and calmness to people who are freaking out. So I try to maintain, my field and my coherence and I know that some people are going to look at that and be like, well, you have to get angry about these injustices that are happening. I'm like, there's too many injustices happening everywhere that I can't just spend my whole life feeling that injustice, or else I'd never get anything done. I'm here to help people. Like, I want to help people heal and live better lives. And I have to stay focused on my mission if I'm going to have that happen,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like your post helps me reconnect with, okay, what can I do in this situation? Because I don't have that much power to change any of it. So I just feel like I have to take it back to myself and just reconnect with what's important and what will help at this time. And I feel like that's being that strong, coherent field.
Well, and that's the irony too, is that I firmly believe that if the overwhelming majority of people who are focused on that took that same approach, then it would dissipate or diffuse that situation in many ways. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I'll give an example, and this is an extreme example. I'm not going to name his name, but there's a very well-known Australian influencer who is an anarchist.
Crocodile Dundee.
Yes. Pretty much. Yeah, Crocodile Dundee. No, we'll call him Crocodile Dundee since I'm not going to say his name. So, okay, there's a very well-known Australian anarchist influencer named Crocodile Dundee for in place of his pseudonym, that has spent the last 2.5 years, I guess it's been, 18 months, last 18 months, perpetually focusing on and calling out what's happening in Palestine. Now, that may seem like a noble cause, and maybe like at some level that is part of his role, and it's a useful role because otherwise we wouldn't know what's going on there, and there is shadowy things that happen behind the scenes with respect to governments, with respect to, like, even to the degree, if you think about compartmentalization, you could look at if people in America didn't truly know at least some level the injustices that are occurring. I'm just using this example between Israel and Palestine right now, and like in Gaza, right? Then there would be an inclination, even amongst those who are in the military who sign up for noble causes. What are noble causes? They think based on their current frame of mind that they're fighting for freedom, against terrorists abroad, right? They might think that what they're doing is humane and the right thing to do. So there is some level of us needing to, I won't say needing, but it might be helpful to be aware of like, oh no, this is actually tens of thousands of innocent people, including thousands and thousands and thousands of children dying. Now, that being said, this individual has spent all of his time looking into and calling this out. No longer lives in Australia, but I've spent some time with him at various events that I've been at. And he is fucking miserable to be around. He is miserable to be around. And his like health is slowly withering away. And it's like you can see that by continuing to pull that information in and then speak about it over and over and over and over again, it's like taking a toll on his beingness to the degree that he's actually, in a weird way, sort of become a physical, albeit different embodiment of that which he is continuing to focus on and give voice to. So it's such a weird, like, intricate balance that is required, because I'm not saying we just like shut all that stuff off, but I think at this point, most people, at least who tune into this show, are generally aware of what is going on there. And there might come a time, and say again?
It's devastating.
It's devastating.
I don't know what to do about it.
And that's the thing is
it's like, I'm like, okay, I have a platform. Should I be talking about this? And it makes me feel, it's a hard thing to hold.
Yeah.
It's just like, what do we do with all of this information?
Yeah, it's tough. And like, I would say maybe the correct answer, and I can only speak for myself here, is that do you truly feel called to, or are you feeling pressure from other people to speak about it? And I would say initially when it first happened, because I knew that I perceived that this was a very similar playbook to what occurred with 9/11 and Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom when October 7th happened, that at that time I did feel like a calling to speak about it. But then it got to a point where I felt myself and my own health sort of withering away when I was watching repetitive videos each day of on-the-ground reporters in Gaza showing exactly what was occurring. Like, I finally got to a point where, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I felt myself, and then I really started reflecting on, am I helping bring just general awareness to this so people know, okay, I'm not going to accept that offer or anything associated with it, and I'm going to consciously choose my energy over here, or am I continuing to feed it? And only you can know the answer to that, right? At least I think only you can know the answer to that. Only I could know the answer. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I've been speaking about this for 2.5, 3 months now. I don't feel like it's going to do me any justice, or any of my followers any justice, or anyone who listens to me any justice by continuing to speak on this. There are enough people doing it, but for me, this is not going to help the situation in any way. And like, we do feel helpless to those injustices, but here's the other thing too. I don't know that our bodies, nervous system, for lack of a better term, I don't know what other terminology to use when it comes to like half this stuff. Nervous system, for lack of a better term, are meant to know the exact details of the atrocities that are occurring outside of our immediate vicinity. To the degree that we are now, of course, being connected, like I would have never met you guys if it wasn't for the various ways we're connected now. And at the same time, I don't think I would know about, like, for example, some influencer posted yesterday, oh, there was a killing in Vegas that wasn't on the news and someone got shot. I'm like, reflecting on it, I'm like, why do I need to know that though? Why do I need to know that someone in Vegas got shot? One guy. Like, I'm not saying that that's not a sad thing, but am I designed to know that? And do I really need to know that information? Is that going to help me in my current state?
I feel like from so many of us, I think we're seeing the impacts of knowing too much of what's going on, and that everyone is so dysregulated. Our mitochondria and the water is just picking up on so much collective fear. And what are our mitochondria wanting? They're wanting signals of safety. And that's how we heal. We heal when they're like, oh, it's safe. And I don't think any of this is promoting safety. And I think that that's why so many people are so dysregulated and so sick and have so many symptoms and conditions, because there's stress and fear and scarcity and horrible things happening all over that we're now privy to that we never would have been. And so I think that it's a step of like self-preservation. And sometimes I think that we have to be selfish. We have to put on our own oxygen mask first. And so if you are, I am dealing with a couple of still little health things, and I am working on healing those things and also working on helping other people heal. And so just focusing on myself, it's like I actually can't know about all this stuff because it would dysregulate me so much because I'm so empathetic, and that like it takes me out. And then I can't do what I'm meant to do, to help other people feel better. And so, yeah, I feel like we shouldn't be knowing about all this stuff personally. But again, I know that's coming from a space of a lot of privilege and all that.
See, I don't believe that though. I don't know that that's exactly true. Like maybe I get triggered by the whole like privilege word.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what to feel about that too. Like I feel like someone's going to say that based on what we're talking about. Yeah. So, but I don't know.
No, exactly. Like, it's such an interesting dance.
I mean, I think even simplifying it, like I think about that when I'm on Zoom calls where it's like I'm looking at like 20 faces, and it's like there's no way my nervous system should be processing the emotions and reactions of 20 people at one time. Like it's just not, you know what I mean? You can't, normally if we're having a conversation, it's like I'm looking at you, but I see 20 heads, you know what I mean? It's weird.
That is wild.
Well, we get into some really deep metaphysical questioning here about how is a human being created in the first place? What's our origin story? And therefore, what is our natural state? We could spend a long time on that.
Dude, that's a big one.
Especially when we get, so another Confluence story. Did you go to the tent with the artifacts? Should we talk about this or no?
No, I do.
Because I went in there and I held this stuff. And I've talked about it on a few podcasts because I'm pretty blown away by it.
Are you really that blown away that you've talked about it on other podcasts?
I've talked about other podcasts. I like talking about Confluence too.
Dude, I appreciate that. But it's funny because I reached out to that guy. What's his name?
I don't remember his name.
Okay, I feel bad. I should know,
bad too.
I reached out to him on Telegram because of your recommendation. Like when you speak about something at that level, because you wrote a little like message in our group chat, and I was like, damn, like, okay, this is really impactful then. Because I know you're a very tapped in dude, tapped in the same stuff as me. So if something was like that mind blowing to you, it's something that I want to experience.
Well, let me give the context. Okay. One of my books is called An End to Upside Down Contact. It's about contact with non-human intelligences, both in the modern era regarding UFOs, but also like metaphysical contact, near-death experience, people encountering a being of light or a demon, things like that. But also looking at the historical context. Because if you look at lore from all over the world, they talk about higher intelligences influencing human society. And some talk about the idea of creating hybrids somehow, whether it's through genetic modification or some other means.
So-called genetic.
So-called, whatever it is, using some kind of technology, maybe it's energetic, to create who knows
hybrids
what.
of different biological entities.
Yeah. So even, for example, John Mack, who was the head of psychiatry at Harvard, Pulitzer Prize winner, late in his career, he was studying allegations of alien abductions and wrote books about this in the 90s. One called Abduction, another called Passport to the Cosmos. A common theme was that these people were saying they were taking genetic material, sperm and eggs, whatever you want to call it, from human beings and creating human-alien hybrids. And some people were holding the hybrid babies. This guy from Harvard saying, look, something is going on here. I can tell, I'm a psychiatrist, something real. So I think about this a lot of like, what's our true origin? Because even in medicine, in alternative medicine, terrain medicine, we say, oh, well, the human being was trained to do this in nature. Do we really know what we were trained to be?
We don't know for sure.
We don't know.
No.
Okay. So that goes to this tent at Confluence, which a few of my friends from LA, they were like, Nate and Gold and a few others, they said, you've got to come to this tent, Mark. They like forced me in there. So I go in the tent, and they're artifacts allegedly from Mexico. I hope I'm getting this right.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
They dug up in Mexico. And this guy, I can't remember his name, he has a whole warehouse of these artifacts.
I'll look it up while you're doing that.
Okay, he had a few of them in this tent, like many of them. And the imagery was a combination of Egyptian stuff, so like Thoth and Anubis, clearly Egyptian imagery, mixed with clearly Mesoamerican imagery, like these skulls that you would imagine in Mexican culture, for example, and then straight up aliens. Okay, so like elongated skulls, but then bending backwards, not just elongated, but going back too, as in, like you would see this in a sci-fi movie, basically. There was one image I saw, I haven't been able to find a picture of it online anywhere, but I saw it myself, of one of these clearly alien beings with like slit eyes that you would imagine in a sci-fi movie, across from a human being, and the human being was basically scribing with some kind of writing utensil, like it looked like a pencil or something. And you saw these alien beings everywhere, and it looked like they were involved somehow in human creation. There was an Anunnaki-looking being, similar to what you see in the Sumerian texts. There was even this little like pocketbook thing that you see associated with the Anunnaki that I was able to hold. And you see this in the imagery. The being, because I held it, it's so heavy. This would have to be a very large being to just hold it as casually as you'd see in the imagery. So the question here is, what is a human being? How do these other intelligences influence us? Were we a creation? Are we hybrids? And if so, what does that mean about our attention span and how we take in information? Is it true that we're not capable of taking in all this negative stuff and positive stuff, or might we be capable of it?
Damn, that's a deep question, man. Oh my goodness.
And we can apply that to everything.
Yeah.
With regard to eating, with regard to light, we have to really step back. What is a human being? How are we created? What is natural?
Yeah, I guess, okay, first I'll say the guy that I was referring to, that we're both referring to, is Greg Smith. I don't remember his partner's name, and I don't remember if it was a romantic partner, but his name is Greg Smith. And I think if you were to type in like on Google or any search engine, the keywords Greg Smith, crystal skulls, or like Mesoamerican, Mexican artifacts or something like that, you'd probably find him. Anyway, man, that is a big question. For me, like when I refer back to who we truly are, I'm referring more to a feeling, like, and that's just the way that I describe it with words, is like when we're together in confluence, not to go off on a tangent elsewhere, because I do want to discuss this. Like, I don't know with 100% certainty in terms of if we're speaking strict epistemology or even ontology, like what it means to be human, right? Like, I don't know. But it's more of a feeling that I feel deep inside when I'm in a space where I feel deeply connected to other human beings, that I feel like I am accessing a core aspect of who I truly am. And I would think that other people feel the same general feelings as well that I'm feeling. I'm not saying we have the identical resonance, but there is something to that. Like what Eileen talks about, that we're all on the same frequency, if you will. I don't know if I'm using the appropriate terms here, but you get what I'm saying, that we're all on the same frequency. We're matching each other. And that's where you can like look in other people's eyes when we're at confluence. I sort of feel it right now too, that like there's this shared beingness that we experience together. I'm still an individuated being myself, but I feel like I'm accessing a core aspect of who I truly am in those spaces. And it's not only when I'm at confluence. It's when I'm holding my brand new baby. It's when I'm playing with my son and my son is doing something that is just so damn cute. And then he looks up at me and I make eye contact with him. And like we talk about the eyes being the window of the soul. And at confluence, I feel like you could really look people in the eye as you're walking by them and see such a depth to them past all the layers of them that I think you're looking at who they truly are. Now, I don't know what that is. Like even when it comes to like what is a human being, I don't know, because according to the mainstream scientific community, we can only perceive 0.0035% of the available electromagnetic spectrum. I always say this. I wonder how they even determine what is the available electromagnetic spectrum in the first place using human instrumentation. But the point is, there's so much more to us than we can even perceive. I don't know. And like the creation story stuff, man, that shit, dude.
What do you think of Nephilim and stuff?
You're the one who wrote the book.
Possible.
You tell me.
I think it's all possible. Actually, I say this all the time about that book, and Upside Down Contact. The reason I felt comfortable writing it is that in my research, I didn't feel like anyone had a handle on this stuff.
Yeah.
It is such a big mystery, especially when you get into multidimensional realms and looking at ancient history and trying to interpret ancient texts. It's really, I think, impossible to piece it together. So I don't know. I think it's definitely possible that there were larger beings. I mean, the consistency in the literature of giants is very significant, but also being with these artifacts that were super heavy and thinking about the kind of being that would need to carry
It was
that.
like a purse, like an alien purse.
People call it a purse.
It's like
I don't
an
know
alien
what you call
knapsack.
it, but it was like made of stone. And then there was
Alien
also,
to-go box.
Yeah, that sucks. It's made of rocks. You got to carry it around all day.
I don't think there
Sucks.
was stuff in it. I don't know what it was. It looks like a purse. So you'll know, people who are listening probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, alien purse.
But also, when you shine light on it, Greg was showing this to me, it would like glow in weird colors.
Wow.
Some of these things, like weird stuff. And I could see the dirt in the engravings. This looked legitimate to me rather than just like hoax
Well, I know a few other
But-
people. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like a few other people that I know, one other person that I know that experienced holding one of the crystal skulls that he had, when he held the skulls, immediately was getting like, for lack of a better term, instantaneous downloads or insights or whatever you want to call it, through his crown, and was like experiencing a bunch of memories, you could say, within his being, not of his life right now, but of his ancestors' lives. And this is someone who does not lean in the direction of any of these things. That's what's wild. But then he got really pissed off because this individual I'm speaking about, I'm paraphrasing obviously, and like I could be getting some of the details wrong, but generally this is correct. This individual I'm talking about grew up in Mexico, and he sort of had this complex that where he was a little bit irritated because he had heard legends growing up of these things, that this white guy, Greg Smith, is walking around with him like, what the hell? Who are you to like take artifacts from my ancestors and do this? But then he was visited in multiple dreams afterwards by his ancestors saying like, no, you got it all wrong. Greg Smith is one of us. Like, do not worry. He's holding these artifacts in high regard. He's doing a service to these things. It's all good. And then he sort of let it go after that. And again, this is someone who is not inclined to venture down any of these things. He's a regenerative farmer and a chef. So like, that's his thing.
Yeah.
Not that he's not a spiritual guy, but you get what I'm saying.
I mean, Greg showed us video of the excavation, which looked pretty legit to me. And you saw the same alien figures. You saw the Anunnaki looking creature. There was a double helix structure, which I don't think necessarily means DNA, but it could mean that shape is significant.
Yeah.
Spiritually in some way.
Vortexing
Vortexing. But I'm
yeah.
like, why is there a gray looking alien with an elongated skull? Not quite gray, but some other like sci-fi looking alien with an Anunnaki looking being holding a purse and a double helix. Like, that's wild. What's really going? And why are they found in Mexico? That destroys the historical timeline completely because they shouldn't have been interacting with Egyptian type things. And there was a picture of the Mexican pyramid as well. Go ahead.
Have you looked into like the America's Egypt stuff? Like that maybe the maps are flipped and this was Egypt over here?
I've heard things like that. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Can you speak about that a little bit?
I don't know too much about it, but there's people, well, maybe you can add some context, that think that that essentially the maps were switched, and for example, the Mississippi and the Nile, and like there's all these comparisons, like this was actually Egypt over here, like around Tennessee and shit. And yeah, I don't know too much about it.
There's something about the Grand Canyon with that though too, right?
I'm sure.
And from my understanding, the what's that one organization that's like the museum, like what the primary museum?
Smithsonian?
Yeah, Smithsonian has found a bunch of Egyptian-style sarcophagus. What would be like a
sarcophaguses?
Is it sarcophagi?
I don't know. That was also in the video of this, like an alien being looked like a sarcophagus.
No
some kind
shit.
Of yeah.
An alien, like specific,
it was an alien-looking being.
So you said their heads went back. It's like a Muppet nose, like it went, like it arced, it curved.
So imagine, a lot of Egyptian imagery.
I know the long skulls,
shows
like
the long skulls,
the
but then it goes
have that
back.
shit.
So it's elongated and then goes back. Also.
That's wild.
Alien looking. There's no way to look at that and say it doesn't look like an alien.
For sure.
I've never seen that before.
No.
Well, the Rothschilds have kind of weird heads. You ever see those? They have the elongated skull.
I wonder if they're
allegedly
like descendants of that. I wonder what that is.
Well, that's how I think, right? Because that's why I was asking about the Nephilim, where it's like these, whatever, I don't know if we want to call them people at this point, whatever these beings are, were descended from that lineage that are quote unquote in control right now.
Could be. Or there could be multiple lineages. There's that book called The Nephilim Were Clowns. Have you read that? Comparing modern day clowns. A lot of people fear clowns.
Like birthday clowns?
That's what the Nephilim looked like.
No way.
I haven't heard this. I like that, though.
There's a book. I think it's called The Nephilim Were Clowns. And I can't remember the author's name.
They're clowning.
But so maybe it's multiple.
Nephilims were mimes and jugglers.
Oh
no, that's crazy though. I'm going to look into that.
What's wild to me is like how much, this is the wildest part of what you're talking about, is that these artifacts look identical to various artifacts found across the earth.
Right. Thoth
that
and
is
Anubis.
wild.
Those
wild.
are characters you see in Egypt.
Yeah.
Why are they finding them in Mexico with aliens and Anunnaki?
I wonder... I'm going to butcher this, but I'm wondering, because like the same could be applied when you talk about like Tartarian like stuff, is how the architectural styles of, even you look at the Texas State Capitol building, the Washington State Capitol building, pretty much any Capitol building, and virtually all across Europe, all across South America, it's the same general architectural styles featured. I wonder if we're talking about like two different eras. Like there is an Egyptian-esque, like maybe 12,000 year ago era, that there was a unified civilization across the earth. Then something happened, and a lot of people talk about like these resets, whether planned or just inherent part of this realm, this like cyclical nature. And then another era was with like the Roman style architecture across the earth, some like unified kingdom, or maybe there's warring factions, I don't know. And then another thing happened, and now we're on the verge or on the cusp of creating another unified thing across the world. And then another event.
It makes sense. So, isn't it said that this is like the fourth iteration of Babylon? So maybe there was multiple that have.
Have you gone down that rabbit hole at all though? Like the Jason Bashir's
A little bit, but not too much.
Okay. Yeah, it's wild.
Also the Great Flood that all the cultures talk about. So there could be layers of cycles, like you say, and it's hard to decipher what they are. And then I haven't looked at this stuff enough, like the whole field of geology, which Mike Wilkerson talks a lot about. Like, can we trust carbon dating? Can we trust? He talks about rapid petrification, which destroys the historical timelines. Like, can we really know with certainty when an artifact was created, or are we basing it on inference?
Dude, what's so wild to me is when he showed me there are countless examples of people in labs who are able to take biological substances and through like a very, very high arcing like plasma phenomenon, immediately petrifies something to where it looks like a geological structure.
He was telling me you could do it in a microwave.
Dude, that is wild to me.
Yeah.
Because like that would, if what Mike is talking about is correct with respect to geology, and it is like the one that is like, oh my goodness, or I guess two things are the heart stones. Have you heard him talk about that?
Yeah, I've seen like 300 of them in his office. It's insane.
Yeah, it's wild. The heart stones, and then the other one is the elephant.
Titan elephant?
Yeah, the Titan elephant in Spain, where there's like 10 plus anatomical structures that are identical to that of an actual elephant. And have you looked into that?
I saw that in one of Veda's presentations. She hosted some.
He had Mike Wilkerson speak.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, that was the first time I was ever introduced to something like that.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. But like the odds of it being just coincidence that like 10 plus different anatomical structures are identical to that of an elephant is like so unbelievably low. So it's pretty interesting.
Especially the hearts, when there's like 200 of them that are the same shape with, the whatever.
Yeah.
How big are those?
Different sizes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it would lend credence to the possibility, given what they can do in labs, immediately petrifying something that is biological into what look like geological formations. The idea that Mike also talks about, that he thinks there's a possibility that many of these resets or the cyclical nature, whether you're talking about the Kali Yuga of this realm, occur because of like plasmatic phenomena where like the ionosphere, for lack of a better term, drops, and there's so much positive ion commotion going on, which is harmful to our bodies, that it like immediately petrifies everything. I'm not saying that in like a very sheer way, but like looking at Mike Wilkerson's work and knowing what they can do in labs, it's like, there might be something to this. And that especially with everyone talking about like resets and things like this, it's wild.
So the point is, we can't really know when things occurred well as geologists tell us. And that destroys basically so many of the timelines or narratives. We have to ask a lot more questions.
What year are we actually in, do you think?
12?
13.8 billion.
Good guess.
Is that what they say? Is
the
that
Big Bang?
The Big Bang, 13.8.
Which no one has ever validated.
Yeah, no one witnessed that happen.
It requires an inflaton particle to account for the rapid inflation that allegedly occurred 13.8 billion years ago, and no one's ever found an inflaton particle. And if you didn't have the inflaton particle to create the Big Bang, you wouldn't have billions of years for Darwinian evolution and everything else. So
it's really insane how little we know. Like everything is wrong.
Everything's wrong.
I feel like every time I listen to you guys talk, I just know less and less. It's like I feel like I'm learning by subtraction.
It is. No, that's literally
because it just feels like, okay, I'm learning these things as all these things are corroding. It's like, okay, so we got a couple of maybes up here. That's it.
That's it. And it feels good. Like it's scary at first, but then it feels good. Like, I don't know shit, dude. And like, I'm open and curious to exploring.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it at first. And I think that that's how, the average person might feel. Is like, oh my gosh, like gravity's not even proven. I heard that you say that somewhere. Yeah. And I was just like, what? Like, I mean, it's just like mind blowing that it's like, well, at least I know I'm going to stick to the ground, and then it's.
Before people freak out who haven't heard that before, let me just like caveat the gravity thing.
Okay.
Everyone's floating right now.
People are like, they're like, wait, no, I've seen an apple fall to the ground. So the question is not whether or not an apple falls to the ground, it's why. What's the mechanism? Yeah. Is it because mass is attracting mass, as Newton said, or is it because, like what Einstein said, that mass is bending and warping space-time, or is there some other force? And Newton and Einstein, there are a lot of issues. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole. But where you're going, Alec, is this like learning through falsification. There's a principle in the Hindu tradition called neti neti, which I had learned about like when I was learning spiritual philosophy, and then I heard Dr. Tom Cowan mention it. So I mentioned it in my books, and Alec and I have talked about it. Neti, not this, not that. So you get to the truth or get to enlightenment by saying, well, this isn't the truth, this isn't the truth. And then you get to a narrower and narrower set of possible truths until you get to something close to the truth. So I feel way more comfortable these days falsifying models rather than saying I know what is true.
Yeah.
And it's a much more conservative way to do things because there are claims put forth in medicine, cosmology, consciousness science, politics. They say this happened in this way. So we can evaluate those claims, and the burden of proof is on them to show that it's true. It's not on us to come up with an alternative. We can say, that's not true. I don't know what is true, but it's not that.
I feel like people who adopt that perspective when it comes to their political ideology literally have to become voluntarists. You know what I mean, though? Because it requires it from this perspective, the understanding that, okay, I don't know shit. I know very little, if anything at all. And we could go down the epistemological rabbit hole of like, what do you actually know with 100% certainty and like the infinite regress that you'll end up on. But setting that aside is like, because you come to the position that you don't actually know anything, then you know, or you come to the position essentially that others don't either, and it's not okay for me to take my belief system and project it onto others, and I don't want others projecting their belief systems onto me because everyone really is operating on a series of beliefs, and that's okay. We all have them, but the reality is because it's inherently a belief that cannot be demonstrated to be true, it is then immoral to then force other people to adopt them. I feel like you naturally become a voluntarist and you can't really adopt any other political position if you're really truly adopting the neti principle and seeking truth by way of falsification. Did that make sense?
Yeah, because you would never want to impose your will on someone else because your will is based on ignorance constantly.
Yes.
The only thing that we know is, at least where I am right now, the only thing that I know with certainty is that right now at this moment, it feels like I'm having a conscious experience. Everything else is some level of inference, including the past 2 seconds ago. I inferred that happened based on a memory that I'm experiencing now. I think it happened, but I'm not sure. So if you really adopt that perspective, you cannot be anything other than a voluntarist because you would never want to impose, whether it's in economics or in law, on anyone else because you'd be doing it based on inference and then potentially harming someone without giving proper informed consent.
Yep.
And it leads to a deeper epistemological issue. I don't know if we're going to go down this road, but I guess we are now. Of like, when we're told something is true, I'm now at the point now where I would just like love to see that it's true. So with a spinning globe, it's very simple. We're told Earth is a spinning globe, meaning it's a oblate spheroid with a radius value at the equator of roughly 4,000 miles that rotates on a tilted axis. So like, can you show that to me? With a $25 billion a year budget at NASA and being able to allegedly send probes out into deep space and send people to the moon decades ago, but we can't go back because of the loss of technology somehow. But in any event, with all that, wouldn't you expect to have continuous video footage of a spinning globe? Or with virology, we're going to shut down the world on the basis of an alleged particle? Well, there's a definition of what that particle is. It's an obligate intracellular parasite, gets inside of a host cell, replicates, bursts out, goes into other cells, causes physical symptoms in that organism, and then jumps from one organism to another and does the same thing. And no one's ever seen any of those things. Same thing with consciousness in the brain. This is where my journey started. I had assumed that our consciousness just emerges out of our brain. No one's ever seen consciousness pop out of a brain. We've seen correlations between brain activity and conscious experience. We've never seen consciousness pop out of a brain. So it's like an exercise I'm finding myself going through. Okay, you're going to make a claim. Can you just show that to me? And then people get very upset because they'll be like, well, we saw the sun in the sky for 24 hours in Antarctica. And because we saw a light in the sky, that tells us about the nature of Earth.
You saw Elon shoot a Tesla up there with a mannequin or whatever. That's enough. That's enough for a lot of people.
That is. It's wild because that really is enough for a lot of people. When I spoke with Austin Whitson on episode 168, I think it was, for my podcast, I was not in a good frame of mind because I just sprained my ankle earlier that morning. So my ankle's throbbing. You can actually watch on the episode if you watch on video. Throughout the episode, my ankle's getting more like bigger and bigger and bigger.
Flat plane though. Can you roll an ankle on a globe? Can you, Mark?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Can you roll an ankle?
What would the Goda people say?
Probably not.
Yeah. That's a fun rabbit hole to go down. Anyway, so I wasn't in the clearest frame of mind, but I asked him about claims when it comes to the ether. And because they're inherently metaphysical claims, are the same standards applied? And I don't know if I said it in that exact way. I don't remember how he answered, but I've thought about that a lot. When it comes to claims that are inherently metaphysical, do we apply the same standards in order to determine whether they're true? Because, for example, when it comes to any of the theoretical particles that they conjure up, whether they're electrons, whether they're a graviton, this other one that you named, what was that one? New one?
Inflaton.
The inflaton. Viruses, these are claimed to be physical things. And because they're claimed to be physical things, the onus is on them to prove them empirically, right? Because that's how we would measure something empirically. And it makes sense logically if you employ the scientific method like that. It does make sense from a standard in my mind. I mean, at least that's what they claim too. So it's funny, on one hand, they come up with all these particles. They claim that they are scientifically validated. They put out what the scientific method is, and then they don't even adhere to the scientific method in order to validate their own claims. But that being said, when it comes to claims that are inherently metaphysical, do we apply the same standards? Because likewise, in the same breath, many of these things that they attribute to be caused by these physical particles that they conjure up, I think have much better explanations for when you bring back in the context of ether, or even if you don't bring in ether, I think just other metaphysical phenomena, metaphysical happenings are a much better way to explain many of these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I just wonder if like the same standards apply.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. Then Mike and Danny, I want to hear if this makes any sense. No, already, precognition right there. So the scientific method is one way of trying to get to knowledge, basically, but it presupposes that C equals 0, i.e. consciousness equals 0.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Because what you're getting at is like you can't control for consciousness no matter what, so you can't possibly control an experiment properly. Yeah, that's a really good point.
The consciousness of the experimenters, of the participants, of everyone else in the world, we don't know because it's not physical. So it's basically just presupposing physicality or whatever is related to it. That's one big issue. But I think with these metaphysical claims, I'm not even sure if they're metaphysical claims. Like they're metaphysical hypotheses that are put forth to try to explain things. So when I speak about ether, for example, at least I try to give these caveats, that these are alternative models or alternative frameworks that need to be tested in other ways. And it's just like a lot of what we're doing today is like creative thinking.
Yes.
We're not making claims necessarily. We're just talking about stuff. That's very different than saying this is true. So with regard to the ether, and this came up on the Etheric Summit yesterday a bunch too, like what is ether? There are hypotheses that ether might be a background medium, the fifth element that many cultures talked about. And when we talk about matter and light, and anything else that we perceive, those are excitations of the background ether, different modulations, different frequencies of a background medium. That's a hypothesis, basically, rather than calling it a metaphysical claim. Problem is, could we ever test that?
No, that's my point.
We might not be able to test it.
So like when people talk about ether, because I do this, man, because like I do genuinely believe very strongly that a lot of these things could be attributed to ether. Like I do. That's just the truth. And I have to catch myself on not making like assertions with respect to that, because I also can't prove empirically, not that I need to, but in any instance that I would need to, I can't prove empirically that the ether exists.
Yeah, so it's like the ether could explain some of these phenomena, even quote unquote quantum phenomena of entanglement. If there's an interconnected background medium, ether could explain it. But just because ether can explain it doesn't mean it's correct. In the same way that it's true that the globe model would predict a 24-hour sun in the southern hemisphere in Antarctica, in the sky, it predicts that, but just because we see that observation doesn't mean the model's correct. In the same way that wet grass could be caused by rain, there are many other reasons that the grass is wet, like dew or sprinkler systems. So we could be affirming the consequent with ether. Ether can explain all these things. Well, just because a model can explain things doesn't mean it's the correct model necessarily.
That's such a good point to keep coming back to. I mean, even just what you were saying about experiments and the people who are running it and the impact of their thoughts on the water in everybody's bodies. And we know too much now that I feel like everything just became untrue.
Basically. It's wild.
Yeah. It's like we keep trying to study more and more and understand more and more, and we just keep understanding
less and less. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
But there's something oddly relaxing about that. It's like, I feel like when you are just trying to understand everything, there's this control, like grasping, kind of like, I need to control it I need to understand it so I can control it. And it's like, oh yeah, we have no control. We don't know anything. And then I just listen to stories like NDEs and I'm like, okay, that I don't know, that helps my anxiety so much.
I get what you mean. Yeah. That's a big one too.
We could do that rabbit hole.
What
I know what you're thinking.
NDEs are for free will and control.
Both.
Because that's what I was going, dude. Like, do we actually have... I go back and forth on this all the time, dude, because it's like my direct experience would tell me my current state of being, things show up in my reality to reinforce the state of being that I am currently in all the time, for better and for worse, you could say. I won't say it's ever really technically for worse. I think it's all a learning experience, but for lack of a better way to explain it, for better and for worse, my current state of being, things show up in my reality to reflect that until I remember again, like, oh, I've been thinking negatively, or, oh, I've been in like having a good experience right now. And internally I've been feeling really great. And that's why things are showing up. Right. Like, and then the question is, was that always set out to be that way? Did I have any free will? Was I actually co-creating that experience? Do I have like dictatorial control or any control over my own beingness to orient my reality? Or is that all just happening and I have to totally surrender to the reality that I have no control whatsoever? Do you got any thoughts?
Don't look at me for that answer, dog. No, I mean, I think it's also related to kind of what Mark was getting at before, where it's like, I think we have free will in the sense that it's adjusting to all of the decisions, whatever this realm is. And all of this is based on contract when we're interacting, right? So what that you were kind of talking about before, where it's like, are we at some point we're just imposing on everyone else, right? And that's how things get messy when we on political levels, right, where we have all these agreements and contracts. Then I just think everything is contract, kind of. I think of it that way. And so the free will adjusts based on how you're contracting with everyone else, with all your decisions, with your thoughts, right? You're coming into agreement with thoughts that are coming in from wherever they're coming in from. You're coming into agreement when you're speaking something.
Yeah.
You're coming into agreement when you're eating something. You know, all of these things are little micro contracts that we don't really consider.
Like, are you implying that when you are acting in honor in all of your various contractual arrangements, that you have a greater capacity for free will? And then when you're acting in dishonor, the more likely you could invoke karma or something like this, the more likely
or even
you're
disease,
have,
right?
Yeah, disease, karma, just any negative thing is
lack
going
of flow.
Lack of flow.
Right?
Okay. That's wild. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. But what do you think?
I have some thoughts and then another story.
Hell yeah.
So the thoughts with regard to free will, who or what is it we're referring to that we're questioning about free will? That's really the fundamental aspect.
Bro, and this is what I'm talking about. If you go down that epistemological rabbit hole, like that infinite regress you end up on, if you make any claim at all, right? Then you say, how do you know that? And then you make a claim. How do you know that? Make a claim. How do you know that? What you end up with, the only thing that can be proven, we've talked about this, I think.
Yeah.
Did we talk about this?
I think so.
Whether it was on a podcast or not, maybe just in a conversation. We have these types of conversations all the time. But the only thing that you can really prove is experience happens or existence happens. Or some would say, I experience. But the problem with saying I experience is that there is a connotation that you know, or there's an implication that you know who I is in that.
That's really what free will is about to me. We have to figure out who is the agent, whether it's the individual Mark, Alec, Mike, Danny, or are those individuations. This is a model I often talk about, a framework as an alternative to materialism. Materialism is, there was a Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago of little pieces of matter interacting, and that leads to a human being that has a brain and consciousness pops out at the very end after billions of years. An alternative, and I'm not saying this is necessarily true, but directionally, there's evidence that can be supported by this, that all of reality is made of consciousness. Dr. Bernardo Kastrup says we live in an infinite stream of water, and there are individual whirlpools within the stream, and we're each individual whirlpools, but we're made of the same water. So at some level, if the stream is the ultimate I, and that is the substrate of all reality, and maybe the ether is an interface between the consciousness and what we call the physical world, ether is the spiritual interface, potentially, then the only ultimate free will is at the level of the ultimate consciousness. So then we start to sound very religious.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, God is the only entity with free will. But if we're parts of God, because we're whirlpools within a stream, so to speak, then we're maybe harnessing the free will from the broader stream.
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, this is why I think that I agree, because fuck, dude, I love these conversations.
And then I have a story I don't want to forget.
Okay,
so
yeah, well, yeah, please.
No, keep going on.
But this is why I think that the more we reconnect with nature and less, because all these things are great. Like these tools are incredible that man has created, but they can be very detrimental too. But the point is they were created in the image of man. So I think they're going to have, I won't say inherent flaw in their design, but they aren't imbued with the same degree of that God, that pure God energy, source energy, whatever you want to call it, as what you can find in nature, which is why when it comes to health related stuff, yes, I have some what could be considered, quote, biohacking tools. Don't get me wrong, but I think overwhelmingly the answers are found in nature. I think it's because that's where you find God. And likewise, when you're talking about pulling from the primary source of free will within this stream, so to speak, the closer we get to nature, the much easier it is to access these capabilities. Perfect example of that is, this is like a small micro example, but you could come up with so many other ones. At Confluence, Dr. Edith, when we were setting up the blindfold vision, you know how we had the two stages? We had one stage that was inside with a bunch of beautiful stage, but a bunch of fluorescent lights and things like this. And then we had the other stage that was outdoors. She made a specific request that for the blindfold vision, the kids be outside because they are much better at what they're doing. Their skills are much more activated when they are outside. And my son's in the blindfold vision training right now, and there's 6 other kids in the class with him. And you see that oftentimes the kids are struggling if they're in a poor light environment. They're much better at those if they're at least sitting next to a window with lots of natural light coming in versus these artificial lights, it's just really fascinating to think about it like that.
It actually ties into where my story was going to go.
Really?
About basically when we get into a state of flow, which some would call enlightenment. And I studied this for my second book, An End to Upside Down Living. I was looking at awakening journeys, not just in the modern era, but also like spiritual teachers from the past. And there's so many similarities of this like surrender of the ego, terminology like that, where they end up just totally flowing with reality. Just like the Russian martial arts, Sistema, like your body's flowing with it. But then at the same time in Sistema, you need to have strong legs at certain points. So you hold yourself up when someone's trying to pull you down, but your upper body's flowing. So it's this always push and pull that I find of like strength and then passivity. So it's like active and non-active. There's some flow to that.
Yeah.
But my story was, again, Dr. David Hawkins. He talked about when he reached these levels of enlightenment that he would refer to his arm as the arm and his body as the body, because it was starting to act autonomously.
What?
He would just see his body going about its daily business and functioning normally as if it was being propelled by some other force.
So this is what, like, when people talk about be the observer of your thoughts, he was like not only the observer of his thoughts, he was like the observer of his whole experience, and his body was still doing stuff.
Yes.
That is wild.
And what he concluded after that was that we are all karmic wind-up toys let loose.
What the hell?
I mean, that's like it with NDEs. When people come back into their body, they feel so confined and they see their body and they're like, oh, there's a body. Like they do not associate with it at all. And that always stuck with me because we feel so connected to our bodies. We feel like we talk about ourselves as if we are our body. And I always go back to that thought of the NDE, experiences that we're just not,
Do you think that there's a balance to be had with that, though? Because I see some people who deeply understand that we are not the body as a means to live more freely within the body. Mm-hmm. Like really feel free while they're in the body because they know who they truly are at the core, or they have a feeling of who they truly are.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of that, you see a lot of people who like want to escape the body, whether that's what they're saying or not, or like I'm not the body as a means to disassociate in a negative context from this experience. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I see what
it's
you're
like
saying.
one or the other. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm saying like there are two sides to that, like I see that happen in a lot of
right. So if you're saying this is just a body, you could go down this pathway of being like, well, F this body and whatever.
Yeah, I would say that. But
I think about it more like when I sort of hear that, and I can't know it's true, but when I
feel like we're all trying to make like too many qualifying statements right now. Yeah, just talk.
So when I hear something like that, it makes me remember, oh, I'm not my body, so I'm not so identified with it. Yeah. So I'm not, some of my past traumas have a lot to do with shame about my body.
Yeah.
And so I can get a little bit of distance from that. I can be like, oh, this is just the body that my consciousness is inhabiting right now. And so I don't have to feel so much pressure about that, for example. So, or that it's trying to improve the health of my body for the outcome of having deeper connectedness and consciousness and elevating in that sense. And then also having a more pleasurable time on the planet when my body is not hurting or taking me out of what I'm doing. You can't really be in a flow state if you're in chronic pain or something like that, That
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I love it from that angle. I was speaking more towards like a lot of people in new age circles, I guess you could say, who take on like a spiritual persona and then want to meditate all day in order to disassociate from this physical experience because there's stuff about their physical experience that they don't want to look at. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Escapism.
Yeah.
Spiritual bypass.
Yeah, spiritual bypass.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, or people who constantly are going on psychedelic journeys, like we try to leave, we try to numb, we try to avoid this reality a lot in all different ways. But yeah, I see that as being an issue.
Yeah.
Versus feeling everything fully. And I say that as if it's easy. It's going back to the David Hawkins thing of like, if you're feeling something, you're not feeling enough of it. So everything, we're all having our forms of resistance, which who knows where that comes from. It can come from this life, ancestral energy, quote unquote, past lives. Like the causality there is really tough to discern.
Yeah. Alec, I want to go back to something that you were saying earlier about confluence and about how you said that the more in touch with nature we are, there's this deeper remembering and more health. I feel like that's one of the biggest takeaways that I took from Confluence was, I am so as a health and nutrition practitioner, I was very focused on blood sugar and metabolic health and all these things and, biochemistry. And then I started to learn from Sarah and Carrie and learned about this quantum and circadian approach and then, introduced to this whole world. And now I'm looking at things, but I was able to be in this context of like living in harmony and seeing this union and co-creation and that it's just so much more than like a blood sugar number. And it just felt so irrelevant. I was like, oh my gosh, like and even just with the motivation of coming on your podcast, eventually like earning a space on your podcast to like, what would I share with Alec's audience? That's not saying what Sarah and Carrie are saying. And so I've just been sort of asking for that and just hoping to receive this answer. And I keep coming back to just syncing with nature. And as far as we know, as far back as humans, as what we know, that we lived outside and we were in touch with the earth and we were under natural light. And now we have to balance that out with technology because we can't be without it, but we have to mitigate that. And
it's so wild.
I know. And so honestly, it's like trying to balance like enough tech to survive in 2025, but coming back from that as much as possible so that we can be more in tune with nature. And the more, we align ourselves with nature, there's just something so every time I talk about these concepts of, oh yeah, we were not meant to be in ketosis all year round because that's signaling to the body that it's winter all the time and that food is scarce. And it's like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. That's always what people say, oh, that makes so much sense. And I feel like when you're landing on something where the common response is that makes so much sense, you've hit on this something that feels so resonant. And so it's like this, and again, I'm trying not to do the caveats, but it's like this knowing that like, oh yeah, this feels right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I really got that a lot from Confluence, like being outside, being in community, and hearing how much impact our own thoughts and our own beliefs and emotions have on our health, and that, yeah, less of this biohacking and controlling and contorting and fixing, and finding more of a flow with nature, and embracing the darkness and the light and the pain and the beauty. Like, I was going through divorce last year, and I was in Costa Rica to clear my mind. And I was just noticing that I felt so numb, and I felt all of my emotions were so muted. And so I couldn't feel the bad ones, but I also couldn't feel the good ones. And so I find that to circle back to what we were talking about with the emotions earlier, when I actually allow myself to go there and feel that deep emotion, oftentimes I'm rewarded with this like really great emotion after that. And so I think that a huge piece is allowing ourselves to go to the depths so that we can experience the what we would perceive as a higher emotion. And like one night, I just remember crying hysterically. And then I went on my phone, and then I was hysterical laughing at this comedian, like belly laughing. I'm like, wow, I haven't laughed that hard in ages. And I was like, oh, interesting that it was like followed one by the other. And I think that remembering that there's this impermanence, there's cycles, there's darkness and light, there's connection, there's solitude, and embracing all of it as part of the whole, and so I got a lot of that from Confluence. So I'm so grateful.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah,
sure.
I echo those exact same sentiments. Another thing like related to that, just to speak on the biohacking paradigm, the position that I'm currently operating from when it comes to, and biohacking is a term that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. I personally don't like the term, and I know you don't either.
Yeah,
but
I started saying bioharmonizing.
Bioharmonizing, exactly.
Yeah.
And I look at any of these man-made tools that people would attribute to be biohacking tools as useful to the degree that if you're living in the concrete jungle, let's say, and it's really hard for you to connect with nature, maybe your only source of quote unquote organic food is Whole Foods wherever you are. Maybe your only source of being able to put your bare feet on the earth looks like a grounding pad in your house, which I would love to hear your thoughts on those, but like looks like something like that because the closest park is 2 miles away and everything in between is concrete, something like that.
Well, concrete is conductive.
Okay. Maybe you still go ground, but
yeah.
You get what I'm saying.
Yes.
There is something about like putting your bare feet on like the grass or the soil versus concrete, but it's better than nothing. But the point is that those are useful, like in the sense that if you can't connect with nature at that level, then they can, I won't say be a replacement, but they can be a helpful thing to support you. That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I have a red light therapy panel because I live in a house.
Yeah.
I don't live outside in a tent in my backyard because I choose to live in a house. And when it's cold out, sometimes I can't be out there and typing on my computer because my fingers get too cold to actually type. So I try to be outside as much as possible, but sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's windy, sometimes there's thunderstorms, or sometimes it's 109 degrees and I just need to come inside and be in AC. And so that's where we have to let things go, but also we can have these tools to help us bridge that gap a little bit and mitigate some of the negatives of technology, but with a knowing that the idea is that we want to be syncing with nature, out in nature as much as possible, nature-oriented and brainstorming, how can I get outside more? Can I make this Zoom meeting into an old-fashioned phone call so I can take a walk outside as I do it? Can I set up a desk outside? Can I get a laptop and supplement my desktop so I can be mobile and outside some of the time? So I'm always thinking, I'm using that to say, how can we get more in touch? How can I take this activity inside and get outside? How can we embrace the discomfort that comes with being outside? Like currently right now here in Austin in June, my nemesis are mosquitoes. And it's me versus the mosquitoes. And I'm winning this summer because I got this tent outside that has screens, and because I don't have a screened-in patio, and I sit in my tent all the time and I'm grounded because there's no ground, and I'm outside and getting all the infrared, and it's amazing. And so it's just, we got to be a little creative and I also just bought a pool. It comes tomorrow. I'm so excited.
Awesome.
So I can just be out there more because I know that that's how I feel my best for sure. And that's when I'm putting out my best into the world.
Amen. Well said. It brings up questions for me regarding like what is the natural habitat of a human being. But before I go, yeah, dude, that's
we have to get it. What is a human being?
Do you think
What
there
is
were?
a human?
I was going to ask you. Go ahead.
Do you think there were like extremes on the Earth? Do you think that it was more balanced, like it was just warmer?
I have no idea.
Dang, I thought you were gonna give me something, man.
I have no opinion on that.
I wonder what Mike Wilkerson would say about that. But I have a question for you
Go ahead.
because she brought up mosquitoes, and I've heard someone else say this who's like deep into urine therapy with respect to mosquitoes. Do they bother you at all?
No, not really.
There's something about that.
Did they bother you before you started doing urine therapy?
Sure. I mean, I remember just as a kid getting like bit and stuff.
How often are you outside?
I mean, they
Are
weren't
you
like following
outside?
me around in hordes. I was never like, I don't know. They were never
Like
a huge problem for me.
What's the like Snoopy, the one kid who's like dirty that has
Oh,
like a
yeah,
dust cloud
Pigpen.
falling around?
Pigpen, yes.
Yeah,
That's how I feel, just surrounded by mosquitoes. They love me. They just
They love
do.
me too, man. I
But
remember
also, I'm just out there during sunrise and sunset when that's their time.
yeah.
And I learned, I was like, what do mosquitoes eat? So I'm on ChatGPT asking. Like, I thought that they only sucked blood. And that was my facial reaction too. No, they eat stuff like nectar and honeysuckle and all. And I was like, what? Because I thought I saw this video for this mosquito ad because I'm getting heavily targeted right now. And it was like, we're in this wooded section and there's so many mosquitoes. And I was like, but there's no people in the woods. So like, it can't just be animals. And so I had to look it up, and they eat other stuff, and they just need the extra protein from blood if they want to lay eggs. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just like funding new generations of mosquitoes. So I did that thing with the bucket in the backyard with those mosquito dunks. I don't know if you guys have seen. This is the content that's coming across my feed right now.
Help me out though, because I get attacked like crazy
yeah,
too.
so
Please.
you put a bunch of like leaves and sticks and yard debris in a bucket because that apparently gives off nitrogen, which makes it irresistible to mosquitoes. Fill up the bucket with water and then add these things called mosquito dunks. It's some sort of bacillus acid, like some sort of bacteria, I believe, that kills the eggs that they lay in the water.
Oh.
So my thought is that I'm not going to see a benefit from these buckets for their whole life cycle, which apparently is like 30 to 45 days. I know everything about mosquitoes now. So
this is good knowledge. You're spitting good knowledge.
Get your
right here.
buckets going now for the summer, but hopefully that'll get rid of.
I'm going to text you about that afterwards.
Okay,
Mosquito
sure.
dunks. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, but the question on like what is the natural we could do a whole podcast series on what is a human being. That's like a whole separate question. But an aspect of what it means to be human is what is actually the natural habitat of a human being? Because like we all talk about, and I do it too. Like I do it all the time. Like, oh, our ancestors are being more close to nature. But like,
were they?
Yeah, I don't exactly. How do we
I feel
know,
that way
dude?
about diet when people are like, our ancestors ate this. It's like, why? Who said so?
I know, and I say those things myself, and I'm like, yeah, our ancestors were like out in nature more. I'm like, do I know that for sure?
Yeah.
Do I? I don't know. Like, it's wild, and even thinking about, okay, I do think that our ancestors were more connected to nature. They were out in nature more. I do think, though, that they would retreat back inside, but their version of inside relative to our version with drywall, formaldehyde, dirty electricity running through the floors, all these things was way different because they were retreating back to stonemason buildings that were designed with sacred geometry and things like this that were like put off a resonant frequency with domes over the top of them. So that's what they were retreating back to.
Or what about a cave?
Or a cave, exactly. Or
which
a cave.
is still technically outside.
Yeah,
it's
technically
just
outside,
sheltered, right?
Yeah.
What
do
is
you think?
outside, Alec? Maybe we need to define outside.
Yeah, I want to generalize this conversation even further.
Okay.
Oh, great.
What are human needs? So we're talking about biohacking, or we could take it to eating. Like there are breatharians who don't need to ingest anything, but then they're still ingesting something energetically in a way. Either, or who knows what. But biohacking is really about, it gets to that question.
Yeah,
What's a natural human need versus something that's a helper? But we could say food is a helper.
Yeah,
We would
I mean,
need-
you really could. I mean, there are so many outliers when it comes to human beings for so many things that people assume that we need, like all the time, man. Like, I love the meme of like what's the one guy, Brian Johnson, I think is his name. That's like the biohacking guy that's trying
Longevity.
to live forever.
the one that
longevity
looks
guy.
like a
Like him,
orange?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Contrasted against like an old Italian grandpa who
Yes.
chain smokes cigarettes and like is
Super
surrounded by
tan.
community, has never heard what a macro is,
Yeah.
and is super tan and is like has the same projected age
Yeah.
to die. And it's like the point is there's so many outliers when it comes to any of these things that how do we know with certainty what is a human need? Like, what does that even mean?
Right. We have instincts of things that we want, but what's existential versus just a desire that would be nice to have.
Yeah. I mean, that's been interesting with the urine therapy is that over time I've reduced all things that I've thought I've needed. Like I can walk down an aisle in Walmart and everything in this aisle has been eliminated just based on
Can
I have my
can we
needs
take
are
a few
different.
steps back for a second, Mike?
Yeah.
What's been your trajectory with the urine therapy and where are you now with it in terms of your consumption and just application?
I mean, at this point, I use it for most things. I ingest almost all of it in some capacity, I guess. But I use it for all sorts of stuff.
Maybe a better example would be you could walk down a Whole Foods aisle or a natural grocers aisle and like whatever aisle you walk down, everything has been eliminated.
Yeah,
Like whether that's the like cosmetics section.
that's the most obvious when it's
yeah.
like I can get rid of all the eardrops, eye drops, shampoo, everything in this aisle is
Deodorant.
gone. Deodorant. I still use deodorant sometimes, but yeah.
You sweat pretty bad though. Did we talk about this?
We were talking about when we were moving boxes, yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
But yeah, to that point, like my needs now compared to my needs 5-6 years ago, I need hundreds of less things in my mind, you know?
How long did it take you to get to that point? I mean, over this 5-6 year period, when did you get to the point where entire aisles were gone?
I mean, pretty quickly, a couple of years probably. Yeah.
Like, what does that look like in practicality? Like, lay that out for the audience. Like, name all the things that you don't need anymore, whether it's like ingestion or application or otherwise.
Well, I'm not a breatharian, so I'll just set
What's
that.
the longest you've gone without any physical food, though? I know you did a 21-day urine fast. We talked about that on our
Yeah, I did, I think 27 days on urine. I've done 30 days on
without
no
water,
food.
though, right? Like,
I supplemented water sometimes like if I
okay.
wanted to
Okay.
like rinse my mouth out, for example,
Okay.
or even
what's
just
the longest you've done with just looping, though?
it was that stretch, but so I don't know, a couple weeks at a time probably.
Like 2 weeks, though, of just looping
Yeah.
without any additional water being put in?
Yeah.
That is wild.
Aside from like again, like washing my mouth out or something, if it's like I can tell it's getting detoxy in there, you know.
Oh, that's wild.
But yeah, what was the question?
Sorry, I went off on like a
Yeah, how you are
applying.
applying, like, what are the mechanics of this, of
Yeah.
urine therapy for you, and how are you using it?
Because I partake as
Details.
well, but not to the degree that you. So like
I'm over here having a little bit of a visceral reaction, so I'm going to apologize for my face.
Fair enough. No, that's good. Zoom in. Where's your camera?
I'm going to apologize for my face because I'm still new to this. And so
Have you ever heard of this before right now?
I have.
Okay,
Yes, I
okay.
definitely have. And I still had the same reaction. So
Okay.
I'm
She's
it's
out of
just
frame.
Kylie does too. Kylie gets
I'm sorry.
Kylie gets grossed out.
yeah, I
get it.
I'm yeah.
And just to be clear on basics, it's your own urine. It's not someone else's urine.
It's my own, yeah. Yeah.
Continue.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it's situational. Like in the terms of cosmetics, I don't have any other things that I used to have.
Your skin looks good.
Eye drops. Thank you.
Your skin looks really
Yeah,
good.
you look great, man.
Everyone I know who's like
Thank
yeah, you look really hot.
You
man.
just want to kiss.
Like 9.5 out of 10.
Were you able to stop
9.7?
using eyeliner and mascara? Because that would be great for me. But no.
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
I'm just joking.
So we talked about this on our episode. Isn't urea one of the most common compounds in a lot of
In,
cosmetic
like
stuff?
face lotions, all that kind of
So
stuff.
you may be
topically-
rubbing pee on you and you don't even know it.
Yeah, it's probably like horse urine.
Someone
or,
else's
like-
pee from a porta potty.
So topically, you can use it as well as opposed to only ingesting it.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I
I
look
think I
at
would
it as
probably
also
start
ingesting.
there.
Like we're eating through our skin. You know, all the pores are little
that's a good
tiny
point.
mouths. You know
But
what I mean?
what-
Like I don't put anything on my skin that I wouldn't put in my mouth or up my ass.
So this might sound ignorant, but what
Yeah,
about all the toxins that it's expelling, or is that a myth?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I think it's
You don't
trace
think that
amounts.
your kidneys have filtered something and to get rid of it, and then you're putting it in, and now your kidneys are like, oh my god, it's back. You don't.
So
believe
I
that?
just saw a video
Okay.
posted the other day of this guy who's, I don't remember what his credentials are, but someone shared it with me because and they sent me like the eye emoji, like the two eyes, like are you picking up what I'm putting down? Because basically what this dude talks about is, a lot of people don't realize this, but the kidneys are not for waste management. They're more for blood filtration. And he goes into all the details about how they're about filtering our blood. Not to say that we don't have some weird things that might be swimming around in our blood, possibly, if we're like really, really toxic. But the point is, it's less about waste filtration and more about blood filtration. Yeah.
I mean, I know when I did, and this is a whole other topic that we're definitely not going to get into, but like I did a mold test, and it's like all these metabolites and these, things are coming out in your urine, and that's where you test these things. So interesting. I don't know.
It's also like, just to clarify, like if something has a trace amount of a toxin in it, for example, right now we could test a bunch of men and there's glyphosate in their semen. Yeah. So are we now going to call semen a waste product because there's waste in it because everything's fucked up right now? So it doesn't make something a waste product. It just means, shit's out of balance.
Also, we talked about this. It's like you could look at it from the context of homeopathy, that you have like small trace amounts of something that you're feeding back to yourself with your own unique water, you could say, like liquid coming from you. So as like a feedback loop, like a homeopathic feedback loop for yourself.
When you were doing that fast for 27 days or whatever, did you find... Did you pay attention to whether you were outside or inside at all?
I definitely prefer to be outside for sure.
Yeah, because your mitochondria make water when you are outside.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to be out in the sun. Like it's harder to do in winter for sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just wondering that.
All that has an effect for sure.
So wild, like talking about like mitochondria making water, like our bodies literally have primary water that it creates.
Yeah.
Have you thought about in the context of like the Hadza people? Because a lot of indigenous cultures drink much less water than we do.
So and that makes sense because they're in Africa, right?
Yeah.
And so with the amount of solar yield coming in, their mitochondria are just water-making machines.
Yep, they're making their own primary water, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's of course charged because in this next to biophilic surface inside our body, it splits, and then that becomes our battery.
Yeah.
We were talking about that in terms of like a breatharian, right? Where they're not even, maybe if we're going all the way to the extreme, or extreme's not the right word, but you know what I mean? They're not spilling quote unquote urine, and there's just they're reabsorbing it through their bladder, right?
Yeah.
So it's a completely internal.
They don't pee?
Dude, so I won't say all of them don't pee, but it's wild that one we were talking about with that Gerald Pollack talked about in his presentation. We threw that in our episode. It was like an 8-minute clip from one of Dr. Pollack's presentations where he's talking about this dude who was like validated with multiple, endocrinologists, urologists, all the ologists monitoring him in a hospital setting for an extended period of time without taking in, I think, also any water. I think he was doing like dry fasting or something like that as well.
I remember
exactly, for like 14 days or something like this. Crazy. But the urologist specifically, I believe, was doing ultrasounds on his bladder, and his bladder would fill up and then deflate. Fill up with a liquid and deflate, but he wasn't peeing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's never happened to me.
No, me either. Which is wild, though. So,
that
it's
wild.
like they've eliminated. They're also practicing urine therapy, but they're just discreet about it.
Yeah,
it's like
Yeah.
They found other ways. You talked about like our pores being other mouths. Their other mouths are feeding on the urine. And
We're just a one big mouth when it really comes down to it.
one big mouth and a sack of tubes.
Yeah. A sack of watery tubes.
Oh my gosh. So
Did that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah. So basically, we don't really understand the human
Go
body.
ahead. Go ahead.
No,
What
not
you
at
were going to
all.
say? What were you going to say? Sorry.
So I feel like because we're talking about Confluence, I have to bring up an observation that I had at Confluence that I feel like is maybe one of the weirdest things, but it was so meaningful. And it's oddly related to this topic that okay. When we went to Confluence, every single bathroom that I went in, whether it was a bathroom in the restaurant or a porta potty or those portable bathroom things, every bathroom that I went in was clean. Meaning there was no pee on the seat. There was no stray toilet paper in any bathroom, any urinal for the entire 5 days of a festival. And I couldn't get over it because I've been in many a public restroom And that is not what you're met with. And so if you're a man listening, yes, women's restrooms, there's always pee on the seat. There's stuff because
I want to know how that even happens in a
because
women's
women
restroom, but
hover.
okay.
They hover over the toilet seat and we don't have good aim. Like
Okay,
it
got it.
splatters.
Is it because like you're grossed out by the bathroom, so you hover? Is that a common thing that women do?
It's a very common thing that women
ask Kylie
hover
about
over
this.
a toilet seat. It's also a very hard thing to do when you're only 5 feet tall
Mhm.
because the toilet's like, you know. So anyway,
You're like when you sit on a toilet, normally your legs are off the ground anyway. I'm just kidding.
no. But I just couldn't believe that all the toilets were so clean. And I just think it spoke to the essence of the people who were there and how it's like we all know that we're one and we're connected and there was so much respect. And I felt like that trickled down even into like literally the porta potties.
That's pretty wild.
I know.
Maybe that's like a good marker for a healthy society. Is if like
yes.
you go to the bathrooms, how clean are the bathrooms? Not because they're cleaning them all the time, but because the people
the people
clean up after themselves.
Yes, because out of respect. And I noticed that also in Costa Rica, cleanest bathrooms of any country I've ever been in. You go to some random like gas station on the side of the road, the bathroom was like pristine. So I feel like maybe there it's like culture and everything, but with Confluence, I mean, I've been to a bunch of festivals and that's not the way the bathrooms
Definitely not.
are.
No, I've been to so many festivals and it's like a joke that people make about festival bathrooms.
Yeah. And it was not like that. And for some reason that went really deep for me.
So a combination of 1 to 2 things is possible there. One, awesome high quality people that are cleaning up after themselves, or that we have a lot of closet urine therapy people who just weren't using the bathrooms and like just won't admit it.
Yeah. Mike, did you even go into a restroom?
I showered, but other than that, no, probably not. But I think that is a thing, though, in terms of like the resonance of the people there.
Yeah.
Because like you're just talking about other festivals, you know what I mean? Like it's interesting, like even thinking about like house parties in high school or college, where it's like if you were having a house party, you had to commit to like knowing that your house was going to get ruined.
Yes.
That people were going to be jumping on your parents' bed, flinging marinara sauce in the ceiling fan and shit. You know what I mean? So with other festivals, it's like, you know what I mean? Like Winsome Kind's not going to have a mosh pit.
That's so true.
So yeah,
also, there was not much alcohol either, which I think is also just a vibration that is not, just not conducive to oneness and coherence.
And at the least, to my understanding, so like I don't drink myself, but the alcohol that is served at Confluence, I don't handle this side of things. Molly does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more like the speakers, the marketing, and things like that. Shout out to Mike. He helped market this year too.
You want to advertise the bathrooms next year?
Yeah.
Cleanest
bathrooms out of any
Honestly,
festival.
like I might steal that idea.
Yeah,
like
that could do well.
You know what? You know a good marker for a healthy society: clean bathrooms. At Confluence, you will not find a dirty bathroom. Like that's the like very obscure ad where people are like, "What the hell?" Like, but if you've been, you get it. Maybe you get it. But at the least, the alcohol that is served at Confluence, Molly has a brewery on property. And I think she distills her own liquor. I don't know for sure if that's the case, but the point is like you're getting like the highest quality stuff from the earth. And there's also something to be said about that with respect to the food. I think this is a big piece of it too. So you're talking about like how you struggled with eating dairy and gluten and things like this prior to. And I historically struggle a lot when it comes to grains or pseudo grains. Like I cannot do them. My body historically tends to do better on like a pretty strict paleo, if not Whole30 diet.
Yeah.
But when I'm at Confluence, I also eat whatever the hell I want and I feel totally fine. I also feel that I'm eating less than I typically do because I feel like I'm getting nourishment via so many other sources. But there's something to be said specifically about eating of the land that you are on.
That is
physically.
There. You want to talk about coherence. That's what's happening.
Right.
And that's that's why I'm changing a lot of my messaging and what I'm teaching, because we need to eat seasonally and locally because food contains light information. And when the information that's coming in is different than the information that we're seeing out of our eyes, then that creates incoherence and chaos. And that in simple terms, it's like inflammation. So I think that is a huge piece of why we can get away with so much more, and why certain things are so harmful to us is because it might be out of season, or it was grown under like LED lights with like red and blue lights. It's things that are grown and connected to the sun. Like I was just at a farmer's market yesterday because I'm like, I need to go. I need to see what's in season. And it's a hard thing to do because our grocery stores, well, everything's sitting there under these blue lights, but things are grown and shipped from all over the world. So you don't even know what's in season. And so what I've started to do to try to not be overwhelmed by this is to look at what's growing at local farmers markets and try to pick out of that template, even if I can only get it from the grocery store. So that's one of the ways that I'm trying to get more coherence and alignment with nature.
I bet it would be pretty easy at this point too to like use, whether it's an AI tool, and that could be a whole other conversation. I don't even know if we want to go down that rabbit hole, but even if you just like look up on Google, I'm sure someone has created like
there's lots of websites.
Like okay, here's what's in season where you are.
Yeah. There's a lot of those. And I will tell you that ChatGPT has been wrong. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, go with the website because that's something that I'm looking up quite a bit. And so, you can always just Google, like before I go to the grocery store, what's in season in Austin in June, Yeah.
Hey, y'all. I'm here with Melissa Kupsch from RMDY Academy of Homeopathy. We are so stoked here at The Way Forward to be partnering with Melissa and RMDY in order to spread the message of homeopathy across the world, and also to partner on the eventual development of healing centers across the United States.
People are pretty quickly coming to realize that frequency is the future of medicine. We are witnessing the great resurgence of homeopathy right now. We're really moving away from that suppressive medical model, whether it's for eczema, asthma, hormones, fertility, anxiety, depression, trauma, whatever it is, it all starts as energy in the person's field first. If we change our field, we can completely change our life. Our 2-year academy is open worldwide to anyone who wants to become a homeopath. We've got 5 lecturers and we currently have over 500 students enrolled, which is record numbers in our field. A career in homeopathy is amazing for anyone who wants flexibility in their work and who wants to be valuable in creating this new world. We have stay-at-home parents enrolled. We have ex-medical professionals, grandparents signed up who want to learn how to heal their grandchildren and pass on that invaluable knowledge. We even have husband and wife teams. So my husband enrolled in the course with no prior knowledge of health as a background, and he is loving it.
Kylie is also enrolled as well. So my partner is, and she's so stoked to become a homeopath and to be helping to spread this message across the world.
The thing that we hear from so many of our students is, I found my thing. Homeopathy is the key. We harness frequencies from nature and we alter the field of all creations. So if anybody wants to join us or they want to know more about it, they can visit our website.
Yeah, and all that information will be in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about RMDY Academy, also RMDY Collective, also some of the homeopathic products that they have, please just head to the show notes. All of that will be listed there. For generations, our ancestors lived in harmony with nature, thriving on a nose-to-tail approach to nourishment. Organ meats, often called nature's multivitamin, were a staple, providing essential nutrients that supported energy, brain function, skin, gut health, and reproductive vitality. Yet today, these deeply nourishing foods are largely missing from modern diets, leaving many of us unknowingly depleted. Let's be real though. Most of us aren't eating organ meats the way our ancestors did. Whether it's the taste, texture, or simply a shift away from traditional foods, we've lost touch with this vital source of nourishment. And that's where Paleo Valley's grass-fed organ complex comes in. It's an easy way to reconnect with ancestral wisdom and replenish the nutrients we're meant to thrive on. Sourced from grass-fed cows on small regenerative farms in the US, this blend includes liver, heart, and kidney, freeze-dried to preserve their full nutritional integrity. No fillers, no synthetic processing, just pure, bioavailable nourishment. Those who incorporate the grass-fed organ complex notice more energy, balanced moods, and renewed vitality, sometimes within days. If this speaks to you, you can explore more by visiting the show notes or heading to paleovalley.com/thewayforward. And in this case, forward is fully spelled out. So paleovalley.com/theway, FORWARD. and a 15% discount will be automatically applied at checkout. Yeah, I think like it's because this is again referring back to what I think might have been true about our ancestors that I can't know for sure. But point stands that if Weston A. Price was correct, Dr. Weston A. Price, not the foundation, but the individual, about like eating seasonally and locally and eating nose to tail and consuming all parts of the animal and eating animal fats and then also eating grains in that area. Like I've talked with you about this though, and then I have different thoughts on grains, like that they may have been introduced to mankind for nefarious reasons.
Actually, you might like this. Go on, keep going.
Yeah,
sorry.
about the Nephilim. It kind of ties into that, which is wild. But in my current understanding, like human beings were eating grains across the earth, but they were eating from grains grown in their area, and they were still having, relatively speaking, pretty long, healthy lives. So there's a lot of people who think they're gluten intolerant, and then I think it's glyphosate poisoning. I think that's a piece of it, but I also think it's even deeper than it being glyphosate poisoning, because I don't do well with even organic versions of grains,
well,
even if they're sprouted.
They also hybridize the wheat, and now it's like harder to digest. So do you do okay with? You don't do well with any grains.
I mean, I would say maybe sourdoughs, like sourdough breads. I do okay with.
Einkorn is the one for me. That's the least trouble.
Einkorn?
Yeah, like einkorn bread, einkorn.
I don't think I've ever had that.
But what about even emotional associations with these foods?
That's so true. I mean, that's where it's
who knows?
Yeah.
Dude. And again, that's where it goes back to me. I think we're in that intricate dance. It's like there is, how do I put this? There is objective, you could say, energetics with respect to that thing that you're consuming. And you're in a dance between your own belief systems with respect to consuming that thing and the objective energetics that are a part of it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't know that for sure, but fuck.
Yeah, I mean, like drinking a bottle of arsenic would not be healthy.
Right.
Objectively speaking. So we could just take that analogy and apply it.
Right.
That there might be trace amounts of arsenic that can mess with your body a little bit, but then if there's an emotional issue too, then they work together.
Yeah, I mean, you're proof of that right now. Like you stopped the emotional attachment to, no, I can eat dairy and gluten now.
Well, not gluten. I haven't tried that one.
But dairy, though.
But dairy, yes.
And you did legitimately have reactions to it previously.
Yeah, I would break out on my back and like on my, and I'm not, do you see me with
So from like
pimples?
Germany medicine, then she resolved that conflict.
She resolved the conflict, yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
I don't know. But the egg thing, so
it was eggs.
So it was
dairy.
eggs,
Okay.
yeah. And I feel like the eggs, I had them at home and I'm still questioning because I also think that, okay, I was at Confluence and I was in a different emotional state, right? And I'm like, ooh, when I'm home, there's, I work at home and there's the whole everything that I associate. So I think that it's not like I could just be like, oh, I don't have this anymore. I mean, I want to get to a point where I can just flip that switch, but I don't want anyone to think they're a failure because they can't think their way out of a food thing. But yeah, I think that because it goes deeper. It goes like the emotional attachments or different things that have happened when we were eating certain things. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes with the homeopathy journey too.
I'm excited for you. So excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about being like on the land in community that so many of us in the holistic health, truth, freedom space are totally missing. Like, yeah, we've made these virtual connections, which are great. And they brought in-person connections like this. Again, they're awesome. But I think far too many of us are still using that as a replacement for in-person community. And it's not that you have to go attend Confluence, but that's why, shameless plug here, we developed the Way Forward platform that we've developed so you can find like-minded community locally. And it doesn't mean that you have to go put on an event. We have people doing that. Like there's a lot of members in Kansas City, and then we have a lot of members in Northern California. They just put on an event in Northern California this last weekend. So epic.
Amazing.
They're doing one in Kansas City in July, but it doesn't even have to be that. It's just like message all the people in your vicinity, be like, hey, we're of like mind. Let's gather together for a fire in my backyard once a month or something like this, or go out to eat at a dinner, like something like that. Like being of like-minded, resonant community, the effect that has on your body, I think is palpable, and it makes it so you can process emotions easier. You do have these paradigm shifting breakthroughs. You are able to consume something that you wouldn't have consumed elsewhere, and it's able to just pass through you because you're creating concentric rings of strong, coherent fields. There's something to that.
There is. Even just, eating by yourself versus with people. There's even studies that, show it's better. And we're just more, I feel like we're just more in that nice parasympathetic state because we're with somebody else instead of in our own minds, on our phones, distracted, thinking about things. So just taking it to that like real life level, it just, if we're conversing over a meal, it just, there's something different to that. And so that's why I try to eat outside as much as possible. Not only is it better for your blood sugar response to your meal, but it's also because now if I'm eating alone, I'm not alone. I'm in harmony with nature. I'm looking at the trees. I'm hearing the birds. I'm just so much more conscious and present with my meal. And I feel like that's got to be doing something that I don't know what it's doing yet, but it feels like, this feels like how we were kind of designed to be.
Right. And that's
eating.
what I'm saying. It goes back to a feeling rather than like a logical explanation. It's more of like a feeling of who we truly are,
Yep. Yeah. I like that.
It's hard.
So I have a related question for everyone. How would you define this community? Because we're dancing around that. And someone from Confluence, Carolyn, actually asked me that question, and I'll pull out my answer after you guys go.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important thing to try to define.
Yeah. Are you talking about
it's
like
multifaceted. Like all the things we're talking about are parts of this community. They're characteristics of it. But if I were to try to explain it to someone, I'll give you the answer that I gave her. But what would you do, Al? What would you say?
I love that because when people ask me what I do, I say that I run an alternative health podcast. And that is not what I do.
Like, so much more.
So much more.
And this is a really important question to talk about because we're moving into some kind of a new earth. And I feel like Confluence and what you're doing, Alec, is the epicenter. That's what I tell everyone.
What we're doing. You guys are part of that.
But yes, really what you're creating here, and that's what everyone's saying, that this is like it is the way forward for humanity, but maybe having some kind of a framework for what it actually is, because it's so multifaceted.
It's so tough. Someone came up with the term confluencer to describe like what we are. But then the moment you label something, it becomes like an ideology that you like strictly adopt. And that's the tough part. And I think there's something about that. The fact that we can't name what it is, it's because all of us, whether we realize it or not, are prone more so than the rest of society to adopting the neti-neti principle.
Right.
And because of that, we're less inclined to attach to specific ideologies or labels because we're on the path of like falsifying and pulling back all the labels of who and what we truly are and what we're believing in. So it's like a weird paradox. That being said, it does become incredibly hard. I find myself on podcasts, anytime I reference what this community is, I say the cross section between the health, truth, freedom, community, consciousness, like ancient technologies, ancient like tartar, like all those things thrown into one. It's hard to describe what exactly it is because it's so much more than like a holistic health community. That means nothing at this point in time. It's so much more than the freedom community. That means nothing at this point in time. It's so much more than being interested in consciousness. It's so much deeper than all those things.
It was such an intersection of so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to write about it in my newsletter. And I was like, how do I describe this? How do I describe what I'm sort of now leaning into? And it's a hard thing because it's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much and it really is almost like ineffable. Like it's you can't explain it with words because it's more of a felt thing. Just like you can't explain and say with words that what exactly for sure our ancestors did or what's better for a human being, but this feels right in my own direct experience.
Yeah.
It's like that. But I'd love to hear what you came up with.
What do you say, Mike?
This dude wrote 7 books though.
This was a quick text response.
Okay.
But I want to hear Mike's.
Well, I think maybe we should stake the claim on the term community. Instead of trying to define the community, say this is community now, whatever new version this is that we're building, and all the other shit that we're leaving behind, that we were calling community is no longer community. And this is community now.
I like that.
But yeah, it is it is a confluence in the literal sense. Like we talked about that when we were discussing how to talk about the event where all these things are flowing together. To your point, it's this intersection of flow of all these different streams that are coming together. Because there's really no reason that I should be on the same billing as Gerald Pollack. You know what I mean? Like there's no, that's not really, it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen, really, if we're being honest. But it happens there. That's the place where it happens.
So for some context real quick, Mike helped us with the marketing ideas for Confluence because to speak to exactly what we're talking about here, we were really struggling, our team, based on, at that time, having done 2 iterations of Confluence, which this one blew the other 2 out of the water, but the other 2 were incredibly special as well. You can test that. Both of you were there.
Amazing.
On 1 and then 2 for you. But it was really hard to try to figure out how to explain exactly what it is. So he came up with these things. It's where it all flows together, like where it all flows together, where we all flow together. And some of the marketing ideas that I wish we would have brought into fruition, like he had this one idea that was so fucking funny of taking some B-roll of some of Molly's chickens from her farm, just like walking around doing chicken things. And like one of them turns and looks at the camera, and it's Gerald Pollack's hair and Gerald Pollack's beard and then his glasses, and then like has a quote bubble that comes up in his voice. And like, you know, like the animations of like a chicken mouth opening in a way that's clearly like not the chicken talking, of Gerald Pollack saying something, and then it cuts to the next thing and it says, where 4th phase water meets free range eggs, where it all flows together.
We had Lincoln Jesser cows.
Lincoln Jesser cows. Like 2 cows with turntables. Oh my God. And his fro, right? Like Lincoln's fro.
And chains and stuff.
Would have been hilarious. Okay, sorry.
I think something about, I really like marketing. So the idea of like questioning, like people who are like, I feel like a common thread is that we are just questioning everything.
Yeah, and it's
and
like,
we're questioning everything deeply. We're questioning the science. We're questioning what is science. We're questioning who is questioning science. Like, it's just like, you know, with Mark's stuff, it's just like we keep questioning and keep trying to get closer to what is something that we will never get to, but we're all okay with it.
Yeah, and it's like not a smug, nihilistic questioning.
Or angry. It's not angry.
Questioning. It's and that's where it's like
there's a deep curiosity and like wanting to expose falsities and get closer to what feels like a deep truth, and like what does this all mean? And so it was interesting because there were a lot of different topics at Confluence, but I felt there was a common thread, and I can't necessarily touch on what all that was, but we'll find it.
I know. Yeah, there was.
We might bring ChatGPT into the room on this.
Might give us the wrong answers.
So the question Carolyn asked me, this was her first event. She came in from LA, and she texted me afterwards and said, "What are the people who attend things like Confluence generally termed?" Great question. So my quick answer was spiritual, contrarian, anti-germ theorist, globe skeptic, anarchists with a question mark at the end.
That's a good one.
Which I think is unfair because not everyone at Confluence is on board with all those things.
I know.
But what I was trying to get to was that there are many paradigms that people are questioning. So I think it's like, it's those who question in a non-angry, smug way.
Yeah. Yeah. Those who are okay with questioning. Yeah.
Okay with questioning, okay with not knowing.
Or they're doing the Russian
What's
questioning. Russian questioning.
Systema. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not resisting it.
Yeah.
Because I think about that when it comes to the virus stuff, where it's like, shouldn't you be happy that there's nothing that's going to fly up your nose and make you sick? Like, why are we upset about letting go of that? You know
That's
what I mean?
such a good point.
Like, the questioning allows you, if you're willing to go with the flow, like you've been talking about, there's a freedom to that.
Yeah.
But people do that, I've seen in other communities, and maybe they're not as attuned to certain paradigms that I see at Confluence.
Like what do you mean?
Like, let's say they're flowing really well and they're very spiritually evolved, but then they say you should take the vaccine and the New York Times is the Bible.
Yeah, it's wild.
There are these different, and I mentioned this in my talk, Ken Wilber's framework of lines of development, where people develop in different ways that are relatively independent.
Did you write The Theory of Everything, or A Theory of Everything, or Theory for Everything?
He's written so many things. Well, that's Tom Campbell is my big TOE, Theory of Everything. He was on Joe Rogan.
Keep going.
Ken Wilber is a philosopher who's written so many books.
Wilber is.
But so lines of development, the terminology he uses is waking up, cleaning up, growing up, and showing up. And you could do one of those things really well, but maybe not the other thing. So it feels like the Confluence community is doing a good job in a lot of those areas, or at least focused on them. And what Ken Wilber said is you have people maybe in certain traditions where all they care about is waking up and reaching enlightenment and feeling the bliss, but they've done no cleaning up. And then they're sleeping with their students or stealing money, or like their inner demons haven't been exercised yet. And we could see this in many areas. You could have someone who's awakened, they've done all the cleaning up, they're grown up, and then they say, I'm just going to sit on the couch and not do anything because who cares? The world's good. They're not showing up, for example. And I feel like Confluence is the confluence of all that
those
stuff.
Things. Wow, that's a really
of
good
multiple
way to
lines of development. So it's like an integrated human that we're seeing.
Yeah, integrated humans. That's a really good way to describe it too. It's so hard to describe it with words though, because like each term that I try to come up with in my head, I'm like, no, that's not it. Like it's
No,
not.
I don't think you'll land on, well, maybe a term, but it will always, I think, feel incomplete. But I think two things. I think there's a big. We all let things go. Like we all have that ability to not cling to what kind of keeps our bearings, right? So it's like, oh, cool, gravity is not what we think it is. And it's like, oh my gosh, it disrupts a lot of stuff, but we're willing to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, which I think is really different than a lot of other people, where there's this like need to know and need to like, no, this has to happen and we have to be on this globe. Like and I could feel that within myself too, as I learned something like, not the globe. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? Like, do I have to identify as a flat earther? Like, there's just, and so, I'm not sure at this point, as I don't think Mark is either. I think he studied this the most.
The book is dedicated to those who are comfortable with 3 important words. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that we're all okay with that. And I think we're not afraid to question the things that are important to us that we feel like we know as well. But also I think on a more logistical side that you should definitely have a meeting with people from Confluence to talk about this.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
I want to add something else here because we're speaking about the intellectual side of it, but I think there's a feeling part of this. When you're with a Confluence crew, you feel the vibration. I don't know how to describe it. And I actually just had an incident the other day. I met up with Deepak and Jen. Shout out to Deepak.
I just had him on my show the other day.
Had an incident.
Cool. And a friend of mine who had never been exposed to these communities met up with us, and there were a few other Confluence people there too. And she said to me afterwards, she's like, I want to like know who these people are, know what's going on. She just like felt the resonance. And I know what she's talking about because when you show up at Confluence, there's a commonality that is both in ideology very often, but also in feeling and frequency.
100%, man. And that's what I'm saying. It's like the words won't describe it because it is a felt thing first. Yes, there are like things that we're all generally speaking interested in, paradigms that we're interested in questioning together, and we do that and we're not attached to it, but it's more of a felt thing. And I think what I always circle back to, it's because whether we speak this or not within this community, I tend to speak it, it's because we know that who we truly are is not all of these things that we question. And what we're experiencing when we're amongst each other is who we truly are being activated by virtue of us sitting more deeply and comfortably in the authenticity of who we truly are.
So I agree with you, but I want to push all of us on this because I think Deepak does a great job of this, of like bridging worlds. If someone came to Confluence and was like, yeah, I got all the COVID jabs, I'm still vaccinating my kids, viruses definitely exist, but they're super cool.
We dunk them underwater, pants
and they're
them.
like,
we pants them.
What, do you ever used to play this game? Like where you would like do this below your knee, and if someone like you slap their neck,
yeah, I know that.
Really
I didn't see it.
Is that
so
the answer? Or just
yeah, we beat them up. No.
Yeah, so how do we
I see
bridge?
where you're going.
Someone says, like, yeah, I've been a Democrat for years, and I vote Democrat every time, and I'm proud to say that. But they're like an awesome person. Ideologically, maybe some differences. What is the way in which the Confluence community deals with that? Also understanding that all of us have come from old paradigms that we've overcome.
I would think that this community is more inclined to be welcoming of that, though, and like be totally, I won't say okay with the decisions that they're making, because like it can lead to harm, but okay with knowing that we're not going to force them to adopt our ideology, because most people that go to voluntarists, if not all, most people that go to Confluence are voluntarists, if not all of them. And because of that, yes, we're going to speak our mind and speak what we've come to understand to be true and things that we've falsified, but we're going to be more welcoming, especially I would say relative to the larger like truth and freedom movement.
But if at Confluence, someone's on stage talking about viruses existing, well, I guess it's different if it's a speaker.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
But is there judgment? Is there judgment from the community?
Judgment? Dude, this is... I want to hear your answer, like, because you came as an attendee this year. I could give my own. But.
So if someone was a speaker
Let's do
talking
both,
about
a speaker or just an attendee, or speaking about cosmology as if Earth revolves around the sun.
Honestly.
Well, I would think, how on earth would Alec miss this?
Yeah.
So that one is a little hard for me. But
it's possible, because you could have someone that's an expert in one area. I see this all the time. Like the consciousness field, they know all about that, but they haven't looked at these other paradigms.
I think that, like, when I hear someone on Alec's podcast, like Zach Bush, I love him. And I think that he was talking about something about viruses or whatever. And I love how you kind of set him up, and he didn't take it, and he doesn't think that. And I think that's totally okay. I also think that I feel that it is such a privilege to have access to this way of thinking, because people are not taught this. So unless you stumbled across Alec's podcast, and there's like I feel like few sources out there thinking this way, talking this way, questioning these things. So I think it's a lack of exposure. So if someone is doing something in their life, I just think, oh, well, maybe they haven't heard this, or everyone can make up their own opinions. Like or there's something in them that feels too frightened to accept this new way of looking at reality, or they don't feel comfortable not knowing. So I personally would maybe have like a flash, like, oh, and then I go into that, like, well, what have they been exposed to? We don't have the same life trajectory. We have not been exposed to the exact same information. And so I think that with a lot of things.
That's a really beautiful way to look at it. Exactly. And
I come from a very judgmental family, and I've had to work on my judgments.
Well, it's great. No, it's great, because that's exactly what I say is, like, when it comes to COVID, for example, had I not been through the experience of witnessing both my mom and then my wife chronically ill within the mainstream allopathic paradigm, and then drastically heal when doing everything they refer to as pseudoscience and quackery, would I have been able to see through the military level propaganda bombardments that occurred through 2020? I would like to think so. I would like to think that I would. But do I know that with 100% certainty? No, I don't. And because I don't know that with 100% certainty, I think it would behoove us to be more kind and welcoming, because at the very least, I liken this to back when I was an evangelical Christian. I could not stand the other Christians who are trying to shove the Bible down other people's throats, telling them they're going to go to hell if they don't profess that Christ is their Lord and Savior. I couldn't stand it, because it wasn't Christ-like. The best way to share the message of Christ, or the best way to share the message of coherence, of health, is by embodying it. And if you're someone who is ragefully projecting your own ideology onto other people, are you truly healthily embodying that which you profess to believe in? Does that reflect someone who is healthy? I would say no. Now, there is a time where, when setting boundaries in specific situations, that it's appropriate to express anger, right? But in the context of just bumping up against, or crossing paths with, or sharing a space with someone who is not of like mind, it would behoove of you to embody that which you claim to be about. And speaking to Confluence specifically from the perspective of a producer, I did have insight into, now I don't want to speculate on exactly what the audio crew that we hired, like the stage crew that we hired, which was just like an AV company from the San Antonio area. They were awesome. They're freaking awesome. I don't want to speculate on like where they sat with a lot of the stuff, but I guarantee you they did not realize they were going to be getting into watching 7 children demonstrate the ability to read blindfolded, and like play chess blindfolded, and call out colors behind their heads.
I can't even play chess with my eyes open.
Dude, I've never played chess in my life. That's what I said. I'm like, I've never played chess once.
Yeah, I think the AV guy from my talk was not expecting a discussion of cosmology that way, because I could see his expressions.
He talked to me afterwards.
Okay.
Like, out of all the talks, that was one. He was like, "We know we live on a globe." I'm like, "How do we know?" And we had a lot of conversations. He was very open to it, but he was like, that was his like sacred cow. Like,
that was really hard for me.
Yeah.
Like, to hear the questioning of it. And so I try to reflect on my own experience and think that other people probably have a similar, like, if I don't have this, then we don't know anything. And what does that mean? And there's just fear.
Yeah.
Like, and so I try to respect that people are not willing a lot of times to face fears and sit with the uncomfortable feelings, and they just want to escape them, and so they want to avoid them, and it's just too much on their system, and maybe that's not their path in this lifetime, that's not their contract, and and so I've had the experience where I have felt like, oh, I know what's best for this person, this client and whatever, or like, when I first learned about eating like paleo or something, I'd see people eating pizza. I'm like, the gluten's going to kill you. Like you want to so badly tell people these things. And it's like, you know what? You can only lead a horse to water. I find myself saying that over and over and over because it's like, we don't know what's best for people and we don't know what they need. And sometimes they have to, we're planting seeds, the seeds have been planted. That guy is probably like, that's so stupid. There's a globe. And he's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. And it's like,
There's a picture of you on his wall.
Yeah.
He's throwing darts at it.
But I think that we come to things, we need to learn things, we need to see things. It'll spiral back to him, and whether he chooses to do it, that's his path. So
amen. Yeah. Very well said. I completely agree with that. Yeah. And speaking of the AV guy specifically, there was multiple instances, because I was communicating with him regularly, right? Where I would watch them have this like light bulb moment, like, oh my God. In a very, in most cases, in a very like beautiful way where they're like, because maybe one of the common threads that you're getting at earlier, Danny, is like, that there was a deep empowerment in pointing to like our true power, the true beautiful mystery of this realm that we're in, that we can't demonstrate empirically is legitimate, but we can all feel we're being pulled towards it. Like those of us in the shared space of confluence. And it's like when you're in that resonant field with so many people oriented towards that, which even my explanation of it is horrible. Like you really can't describe it with words. It makes it so it activates that so much quicker in other people, even if they're so-called normie, even if they're like fully bought into those paradigms. Like I've said that on a number of Instagram lives and other talks. I'm thoroughly convinced you could take someone like you mentioned that is quadruple vaccinated, COVID, like even vaccinating their kids, all the things, all the buying into the climate agenda, and plop them in confluence for a few days. And if they just really immerse themselves in that experience, I would bet at the very least, they would be leaving like, I need to really start questioning some things about the paradigms I've come to accept. Like, how do I know they're true? Maybe they're not fully bought in by that 5 days, but they're definitely going to have been impacted. Like, oh my God, like there's something to this that I've never felt like this before. Or maybe they're touching back on times in their life where they did, and then they find that there's a common thread. And what is the common thread there? And then they start pulling at that thread, and it starts unraveling the false paradigms that they bought into. So that would be my answer to that. But it's much easier for me to say that as a producer of the event. Like I think very highly of the event that I co-produce.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like a field that's created. That's what the attendees all said. And then when we all left, we missed it and wanted to be back in that field. But I think this is a super important discussion because I view the community you built, Alec, as cutting edge of the cutting edge.
Thank you,
in so
bro.
many different paradigms. In terms of not only the content, but in terms of the way we're being taught by each other to ask questions. There are a lot of people who are going to be catching up to that. So how is the container going to be created to allow those people to catch up compassionately and not in a manner of judgment? I mean, if you looked at me 10 years ago, working in Silicon Valley, I knew about none of this stuff. So I have to remember that also when I talk to people, that everyone's on their own timetable. So there needs to be a compassionate container for the people that are going to be waking up. And that's what I think you're creating.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Yeah. And then it's just a matter of like, how do we extrapolate? How do we proliferate that paradigm and create more of those containers like Confluence? Because, dude, it's just to give some like background insight. It's 6 months worth of work that myself, Mike, Molly, Lindsay, and then our teams, Molly with her ranch, me with the Way Forward, Aspen, Katie, and then Mike and Lindsay are putting on for 6 months with very little pay. And it's not about the money. Like it's not about that. I want to be very clear, but the reality is where we're at, we require compensation for our labor, and we're spending 6 months of our time like I'm setting aside even some core functions of the way forward in order to focus on Confluence and building that. And it's meaningful to me. That's why I continue to show up despite right before each Confluence, I'm like, why the fuck do I keep doing this, dude? Like, this is way too much work. This is stressing me out. Like, I've got to focus on the way forward. I have a family, I have kids, like I have all the things, right? And we all experience it in various ways in our life. But then I get to the event and I'm like, this is why. This is why I do this. This is why I do this. And I think this last time, it's like, there is, hopefully, I mean, there's always ebbs and flows, but there is going to be less of like, why the fuck do I keep doing this feeling that I typically have? Because it's like, this third one was special to a degree that I cannot even adequately articulate. And it was so cool hearing the reflections from Dr. Edith, even from Mike Winter, like who himself has put on a number of events very similar to Confluence. Actually, Confluence inspired in many ways by Music and Sky. To hear reflections from them on how special this event was so cool. And the point that I'm getting at, though, is it is incredibly challenging at this current juncture to put on those events because we aren't backed by the same funds that the pharmaceutical industry or even much of like the very superficial levels of the wellness industry are backed by. We're not backed by those same things. Like even when it came to the food, I'm not going to give the figure, but you know, Molly sold 6 figures worth of food. She lost money on food. Mm-hmm. And like people were complaining about the food prices, understandably, because relative to like going to a farm to table restaurant in Austin or a Whole Foods or something like that, it's like, wow, the prices were pretty expensive, right? And most people are like, okay, well, that's typical festival stuff, but we weren't trying to price gouge people. It's that when you're not subsidized by the government, because Molly's not, to grow the way that she grows, which is beyond just the, okay, we're going to cut all the corners, but we're going to make sure we stay within the USDA organic label box. She's doing like full-scale regenerative farming with a small team paying for all the labor, growing it on site, and then you're eating food that was, you know, whether it was an animal just slaughtered like a few days ago from that land or from a local farm nearby Molly's, or eating food that was grown on that very land that you're walking on. And that's just the reality of how much it costs to buy at that level, to buy into a paradigm like that. And I'm not saying that everyone should do that, but there are various ways in our life. This is another tangent that, you know, we were talking about the pricing. We want to make the price for the tickets like something that anyone can afford. But then we're now realizing on the back end of that, like we suffered tremendously. I won't say suffered, but we put in 6 months worth of work and have made very little. And again, it's not about making money, but if I'm devoting my time, I have a family, I have kids, like, you know, all these things. And the same applies to the other people putting it on. But when it comes to an attendee perspective, for those that complain, obviously they don't have the insight into what goes into something like that. And we're going to do a very good job next Confluence to explain like, hey, here's the reason we price the food at this, because here's all the things that go into it that you don't consider. But it's also, if people really took a good look at where they're spending their money, like I run into the same thing when it comes to what we've priced the Way Forward community at, which is $50 annually or $150 annually, respectively. And people are like, I can't afford that. And I'm like, okay, I understand that maybe it's not for you right now. But I've had to do this in my life, take a good look of like my spending habits. And am I buying strictly in accordance with my values? Am I also buying things that I truly need or are beneficial to me in every one of my purchases? Absolutely not. Am I still buying things like whether it's a Netflix subscription or something like that, or stuff that I don't actually fucking need on Amazon? Am I still buying those things? I am. So if I'm complaining about any of those things, you know, being too expensive that are actually valuable to me, can I actually complain about them? I don't really know. And I don't know. That was like a long tangent, but going back to the other point, it's I hope that we can find more creative ways to raise funds, and it doesn't have to be us or someone who's inspired by Confluence, to raise funds to do more Confluence and Music and Sky style events across the world. Living Free Festival. You're going to Living Free? That's a perfect example. Like that was an absolutely incredible event that I went to in Australia. I'm actually stoked that you're going this year. Very similar to Confluence and Music and Sky in terms of the feeling that is there. Mike Winter and I both said the same thing. Like we feel like we are at one of our own events when we're at Living Free, and they're all the way in Australia, but it's the same thing that we're discussing here, the same exact things, which is so cool. but a creative way to raise funds to do more of those. I don't know what that looks like, but it'd be really cool to, I don't know.
It's the funds, and then also making sure it's curated properly and done in this exact manner, because you really have it down and not commercializing it in ways that dilute from the power.
Totally, man. Yeah.
It was really special.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that I went.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you went too. Yeah, it was awesome. It's cool, like seeing people that I've known previously come experience something that I help co-produce, and seeing them light up is like one of the best pieces about it.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone should come if
Thank
you can come.
Just so you guys know, I paid all 3 of them.
It was the
Under
worst
the
5
table.
days of my life. I got in 17 brawls.
Also,
Someone pantsed you.
I didn't realize
You
that
ever
there
get
was going to
tabletop?
be, I didn't realize there was going to be music. So like when you were talking about what it is, it's like conference, like workshops, music, and, you know, activities and congregation and, well, like, you know, like gathering together and nature and I mean, so many things. And there was like music and dancing. And I was so excited about that because I love music festivals. And so that was an added bonus that I didn't know was coming.
I felt it was pretty freaking awesome this year too, that we had like some actual festival artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that any of the other artists that we consistently bring back. Like 2 staples for our event that will always be back as musical artists will be BJ Fisher and Christina Maria Castaneda. Every single event. Those are 2 incredible human beings. Not that the other ones are, but the point is like
Sean Kirk killed it.
dude, Sean Kirk crushed it.
He
absolutely
shut it down.
crushed it.
What about
All
Steve
the
Young,
artists
Mike
did.
Winter? I mean,
Steve
their
Young,
DJ
Mike
sets
Winter.
were incredible.
Lincoln Jesser, his set was freaking awesome. It was amazing. It was cool to have like Lincoln. Like the point that I'm getting at is like, it's one thing to say you have music, but then when you have like, oh, this is an actual like person who plays at festivals too, come and play at this event. Okay, this is pretty dope. Not that the other ones aren't as important, but you get what I'm saying. There's something about that. That's
no,
like,
it was great.
It's a legitimate like music part
I used
of
to
the
be
music
really
festival.
in the scene
Yes,
when I
me
lived
too.
in Miami.
That's why I'm bringing that up.
So-
I've been to Miami Ultra, so like I know I've been to Ultra Music Festival
Yeah.
at one point in my life.
Yeah. I was heavily in that scene for
Was it
several
like
years
more
of my life.
electronic music festivals?
Not only the festivals, I mean, this was every weekend, multiple times a weekend.
Oh, like
I was
raves?
going out
You're wearing binkies and shit?
at like, no, it's like underground tech house music I was really into.
Got it.
And I was dating DJs and,
Oh,
and
boy.
like, now, his friends like co-own Space and put on all these events. They're still doing it. So
Like space?
Space,
I'm
Miami.
kidding.
Space Miami.
Kidding.
That doesn't exist apparently.
Yeah, I know.
I'm learning too
What
many
is it?
things.
High altitude exists.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
What were you gonna say though?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. You're gonna say something. Okay, we can probably wrap it up there. You guys feeling tired and done?
Yeah, I actually have to get going.
Okay. Cool. That was fun. That was a super fun conversation. I had no clue where this was going to go. I just knew that it would be super fun to sit down with all of you. Danny, thank you for coming at a moment's notice like this. It was good to have you here too.
Good to see you schmucks again.
Yeah, good to
Yes.
see you too.
As always.
I'll throw links to follow all 3 of these fine human beings in the show notes. And thanks for tuning in. Much love, y'all.